Welcome back to the best division in football with your boys, Awthentik and The Beard. I'm your host, Awthentik. Today, we're not going to have no beard. We're going to be talking about a lot of Giants football today, man. I've got an incredible guest I'm bringing on today. I would say the originator of this Giants YouTube content stuff. And let me just spew off a couple of stats. Since we like to talk about numbers over here on Awthentik and The Beard, let me give you a couple of stats from this guy one time, man. I subscribed to this dude's channel back in 2018 when he was in his apartment, a small following he was just building up. He's what I would like to call the best play-by-play broadcaster on this entire platform right now. He has totaled over 46,000 subscribers on his channel since 2018, has published over 2,000 videos. You've seen him featured with Carl Banks, Talking Giants, Patricia Traynor, and more. Shout out to his co-host one time too, my brother Bad Dog one time, and over 18 million views on his YouTube channel. I definitely did my research. I see him backstage right now, smiling from ear to ear one time. Today's guest for real needs like no introduction to most Giants fans across the whole internets and the interweb, man. So y'all know it. Without further ado, man, I want y'all to put some biceps in the chat one time. Represent for my brother, your brother one time. My man, Entertainah, is in the building one time. What's going on, brother?
You do. I have no idea how many career views I have. So that was news to me. So
I looked it up yesterday for you one time.
So I appreciate the introduction. Awthentik is always one of my original, just like you said, one of my original subscribers. I remember when I was in my apartment doing the play-by-plays when I first started out, when I was half drunk, doing the play-by-plays, having fun with everybody. And he was one of the most active guys in the chat from the beginning. I remember when you told me you were going to start this channel, and I was excited. And yeah, I mean, I think you're doing a great job. I think this channel is only going to continue to grow. So, yeah, when you asked me to come on, talk Giants football, of course. I mean, we got a lot to talk about. We're excited. I'm sure we'll get into a few healthy debates and excited to be here. I gotta give the intro, though, before we get started.
Oh, you already know. Let's hear it.
I need everybody in the chat, one time, as Awthentik likes to say, one time. Stand up, New York Giant fans. I'm going to be saying that a lot this year because we're going to be scoring a lot more touchdowns.
Facts. And last year was a really good way to kind of spark that off because, you know, I came here in 2019. You've been on since, I think, 2017 or 2018. And my first 3 seasons was like, I don't even know if I want to continue to keep doing this the way that the New York Giants were playing. Every year I felt like I was saying, oh, man, we're going to win 9 games this year. And then you come out, you win 6. We're going to win 10 games this year. You come out, you win 4. So it's good to see this team headed in the right direction. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. I normally start off my shows by sending like shout outs to everybody in the chat. Today, we're going to skip that because I want to get right to the content. I want to start talking about Giants football right away. Save y'all major questions for the end. We'll definitely highlight like all the super chats that come in and we'll get y'all questions on those. But I am going to have a dedicated section for about a good 30 minutes where we'll do just some questions from everybody in the chat. If y'all want to ask me something, if y'all want to ask Entertainah something. And normally the rules here are on the Giant Overreaction. I normally post like media clips or posts from Twitter, and we'd like to see if those are indeed an overreaction or if we were going to take the under. Today, since it was the offseason, I kind of wanted to give things a little bit of a different twist so that we could like kind of talk a little bit in lengths about some of these topics, man, because right now the New York Giants are in Detroit. They're getting ready for a preseason game on Friday. So we're all excited about the way this season is about to go. Things have looked great in training camp. Right before I get off into like some of these questions, I just want to know like just a bit of like just a roundabout of what you're seeing in camp and what you're liking and what you're maybe not liking.
Yeah, as far as the game in Detroit goes, I think there's actually, personally, I think there'll be more to take out of the practices. I'm not going to be there, but I think there'll be more to take out of the practices than the game itself, at least from the starters, because I don't expect a lot of the starters to play. So I'm actually really excited to see and hear about how the ones do for us against the ones for Detroit. I think that'll be really interesting, all the clips that you get. But I'm never a guy, and of course, I'm a fan. I like to have fun on Twitter. When you see a nice throw to Jalen Hyatt, of course, you're going to have some fun with it, right? Fact. But I'm never a guy that's going to overreact or underreact to training camp. I'm just not. I've been doing this way too long. This is now my 6th year on YouTube. And I've gone through, I remember when I first started, they said it in 2018, or 2019, maybe it was Eli Manning's greatest training camp he ever had. So it means very little to me. Am I encouraged? Of course. It's better to hear something good than something bad. Indeed. But then you always say to yourself, well, if the offense is playing good, what does that mean for the defense? So I don't think you're really going to get a good taste of this team until the season starts. And I think the most important thing out of training camp and of course the preseason games and the regular season. But we want to get to the start of the season healthy. That's my main concern with everything else. Am I happy that Daniel Jones looks good? Yeah. Am I happy with the reports we're hearing from some of the beat reporters that he looks so much more comfortable and confident in the offense this year? Yeah, and I expect that. It's year 2 in the offense, but let's pump the brakes. I'm not gonna, and if he throws 10 picks in his first preseason game, I'm not going to overreact to that either. That's what preseason and practice is for, to make mistakes on both sides of the football so you get better by the start of the regular season. So I thought last year a lot of people overreacted to the negative performances from Daniel Jones in the offense before the year started. You heard half the fan base, start Tyrod Taylor, this, that, the other thing. And then this year, I think you're kind of getting it from the other side, where people are probably overreacting a little bit in terms of a positive sense because of training camp. I like to try to remain as even keel as I possibly can, at least when I take it seriously and talk about content. Twitter, I like to be a little bit more of a fan. I just do. I look at Twitter as more of a fun space for me. YouTube, I'm still a fan, and I'm still definitely biased. I always say that because I'm a fan. Fans are biased. But I try to, be a little bit more realistic on my channel.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. YouTube seems to be the space to be able to give like some detailed takes. I look at Twitter. A lot of people don't even understand it. Like, I be trolling on Twitter like all the time. Like, and people come into my comments or my mentions and they're coming at me like I'm being dead serious. But I like to like show a little bit of side of humor on Twitter, but also try to like show a numbers side as well too, because I'm very deep into analytics and deep into statistics as well. You know that I'm always breaking down numbers. I'm always bringing down, some kind of nugget, as we like to call them over here. But so let's just get right into this. I think you gave a good synopsis of what has been going on in training camp. I like what I'm seeing out of Trey Hawkins. That's like finding $1 in the couch, not change. That's like finding a dollar bill in the couch, straight up. So I'm hoping that can translate, because with what we're seeing from Deonte Banks in the secondary, it is a little bit worrisome, I would say. But like you said, we can't get too high, we can't get too low. Me and Pizzle actually have a running joke about that, about like not getting too high, not getting too low, because I think I'm the first person that said that Jalen Hyatt could be a wide receiver 1. And I didn't think it was going to be like this year. But the way things are looking in camp right now, I'm ecstatic about what I'm seeing from Jalen Hyatt, because we need that speed on this offense. The worry is, going to be definitely some other positions, and we're going to get into that today. But I got about 5 or 6 questions for you, chat. I got the Beard, who's actually going to be running some polls in the chat as well. So all the family in the chat, y'all can answer the polls and whatnot. And feel free to, give your takes as well on the topics that we're going to be talking about today, because I will be highlighting some of the stuff on the screen as well. But big shout out to Entertainer, man, for being here, man. I think this is a legendary way for us over here on my channel, especially, to kick off this season, man, which I feel like I'm feeling really good about the Giants entering this season. As far as my years on YouTube, it's the best I've felt in a long time. So
how could you not be excited going into this year?
It's a beautiful thing, man. And for all the people who have been waiting for this day, I'm celebrating with y'all. This is amazing. And we've had some great celebratory streams over here on Awthentik and The Beard, where I literally just like pop up stream and we just have a great time sometimes, especially after that Minnesota Vikings win, which is how I'm going to start this show off. We are going to talk a little bit about what happened in the playoffs with the Giants, with the matchup in the wild card round, and actually what happened in the divisional round and how the Philadelphia Eagles blew the socks off us. But let's get right off into this first one right here, man. We'll get to talking about this topic here. All right, Tainer, let me set this one up just a little bit proper for you while you read what you see on the screen there and get your answer ready, because this going to kind of be like an interview for real for Tainer here. I'm going to try to answer a little bit, but we're going to get Tainer to really speak his thoughts on this, and I'll try to throw out some rebuttals here and also give you some details about these topics in the beginning. Now, I almost made a whole video about why the Minnesota Vikings were frauds, because I do think that the Minnesota Vikings were a bit fraudulent. 11 games won by 1 score. A lot of us already know that. The Giants ended up beating the Vikings in the wild card 31-24. Jones had a day, 24-35, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, 17 attempts on the ground, 78 yards. Isaiah Hodgins' probably biggest game of the year, 8 receptions, 105 yards, 1 touchdown on the day. Now, offensively, were the Minnesota Vikings frauds? In my eyes, absolutely not. Yeah. Defensively, absolutely yes, they were frauds for me. Kirk Cousins has been playing very well against the New York Giants. In 2 games, week 16, he was 34-48, 299 yards, 70% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns. In the wild card, he only had 8 passes hit the ground. He was 31 of 39, 273 yards, 79%, 2 touchdowns. So you combine that's 65 of 87, 572 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in 2 games. So Kirk Cousins did what he had to do. Now, the Minnesota Vikings defense, 31st ranked defense, 31st ranked in pass yards allowed, 31st in explosive plays allowed, 30th in yards per pass, 30th in yards per play, and 28th in points allowed in the NFL. With all that said, lastly, this is how I'm going to put the cherry on top of this. I tweeted this out the other day, so if you're on Twitter, definitely go check this out. The NFC East against the Minnesota Vikings defense. Daniel Jones, he was the first quarterback in playoff history to go for 300 or more yards passing and over 70 yards rushing. Jalen Hurts was the first player ever to have 300 or more passing yards with an 80% completion percentage and 2 rushing touchdowns ever in the NFL. And Dak Prescott had his second best completion percentage of his entire career, where he was 22 of 25, 276 yards. And I'll throw this out there a little bit too. Tony Pollard had 189 yards of total offense against that Minnesota Vikings defense. So with all that said, Tainer, I'm going to give you the floor now, and you tell me if you think the Minnesota Vikings were frauds or not. And you see how I had to get an alley-oop there. It says, take nothing away from the Giants' playoff victory. Let me know what you're thinking, bro.
I mean, they are what they were. They're exactly what you said. They were a very good offensive team who Daniel Jones had to go toe-to-toe with. We knew going into that game that Minnesota's defense was bad, very bad, but we knew that they also had a much superior offense in terms of weaponry to what the New York Giants had. I mean, they had weapons all over the field, especially after they added Hockenson. So, yes, well, I will agree that Daniel Jones definitely went up against a very bad defense, if not the worst, one of the 2, 3, 4 worst in the NFL. Let's put it in context. He's still first playoff game, mind you. Okay, we all remember what Eli Manning did in his first playoff game. First playoff game on the road, Minnesota goes down, scores a touchdown first drive. Daniel Jones gets the ball on the road, has never played in a game of this magnitude in his entire career. First play holding penalty. 1st and 20. You know it. Let's be honest with everybody in the chat. When that happened, I'm as positive as they come. In my head, I'm like,
probably not converting though, right?
Oh, God. 1st and 20. We're down 7-0. Daniel Jones' first playoff start in Minnesota, in the Dome. You got the skulls going. I'm like, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. Daniel Jones goes right down the field, touchdown. And then he proceeds to have an incredible game. Well, yes. Was it a bad defense? Absolutely. But that does not take away from the performance that Daniel Jones and that offense had on that day. They still had to go toe-to-toe. Like when you think about it from the NBA, when you go up against the Golden State Warriors or the Phoenix Suns when they had Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire, you knew the Suns weren't going to play a whole lot of defense, but you also knew that you were going to have to put up 132 points to beat them. Yep. So the Giants had to go out there, and you talked about how good of a job Kirk Cousins did, although he did throw the ball about 10 yards short at the end of that game to Hockenson. Don't know what he was.
Did you see the breakdown on the quarterback when he was talking about, pretty much having no other options? Like it was either take the sack or just dump the ball off there.
Yeah. So, yes, I agree that we definitely benefited in terms of going up against a very poor defense, but we took advantage of it, and we played a near perfect offensive game that day. So I think it was still a really impressive performance, especially when you factor in not just for Jones, the team in general. Basically, every player in that team had never played in a playoff game. Saquon Barkley, Leonard Williams, he's like the vet of the team. He had never played in a playoff game. So, yeah, I thought it was a really impressive performance regardless. Do I think the Vikings overall were fraudulent? Yes and no. I think they were a legitimate playoff team.
I almost want to treat you like, I don't know if you're familiar with Drink Champs, right? When they propose a question on the screen, if you split your answer and you do a yes and no type of answer, you got a drink.
Well, here's what I'll say. If you asked me, do I think they were a legitimate playoff team, I'd say yes. If you asked me, do I think they were a legitimate 13-4 team, I would say no. I would say they were probably more along the lines of in terms of talent, probably a 10-win team that got some lucky bounces.
Got you. So we're going a little bit kind of frauds, kind of not frauds.
I mean, they're not, if based off of a 13-4 record, they're frauds. But I think they were a legitimate playoff team. I don't view them as like a team that did not belong in the playoffs. Yeah,
my co-host, The Beard, man, all year long, I'd say starting probably from about week 5, right? He's like, the Vikings are frauds. And I was kind of rooting for them. I'm like, I want to see Kirk Cousins win some games here, man. The dude has had an unfair shake, I feel like, as far as not being that primetime guy, and I wanted to see him win some games. Week 10, we kind of revisited. The Beard's like, they're frauds, bro. I'm like, I don't know. So I went all the way up into the game. And even after the game, I didn't say the Minnesota Vikings were frauds, but doing a little bit more deep dive on it, I was like, man, winning that many games with between a one-score game, I think right there that kind of lets you know, even though we had 7 ourselves. But in the NFL, I don't think there's any flukes. A lot of people are talking about the Giants entering this year, and they're saying they got to prove that last year wasn't a fluke. And I don't believe in that. I think you play the teams that are on the schedule, and if you beat them, there's nothing fluke about that. You got to go out there and consistently win. This isn't like a one game, we just won one-off game we got lucky in. These are teams that went throughout the season and consistently won games when they were close.
Yeah, and you could look at that both ways. You could look at it like it's fluky to win close games, but then you could also look at it like, no, they're a team that finds ways to win close games, and that's not every team could do that. You think back to the Giants. We said this for years, Authentic, as Giants fans leading up until last year. Well, look how close they were in 7 of those games. They could have easily won 9 or 10. But the Giants were a bad team. They were a bad coach team. And when push comes to shove at the end of those games, they found ways to lose them. Last year, they found ways to win them. Good teams find ways to win games. And in the NFL, everything, for the most part, unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs, is usually within 1 or 2 scores. It's usually going to be close games. So the good teams find ways to win those close games. The bad teams find ways to lose them.
Yeah, and I think if we can show some more consistency with that next year, it'll prove that point, I think, even a little bit more. But the Giants, 9 wins. To me, the offseason was like bit of positive, bit of negative for me because I didn't like the way that we lost to the Eagles. And I think that the performance against the Minnesota Vikings, I thought the game plan was wrong. I can remember talking with my homie Sal about this in our group chat, and me and Sal thought like 1,000% the Giants were going to go out there and try to run the rock. But the Minnesota Vikings defense necessarily didn't call for that, because that pass defense was extremely bad. So they went out there, they capitalized on that. But then to go against the Philadelphia Eagles in the following week and go 4 drives, 3 and out, 2 turnovers to start, it's the worst start to a game I can remember in recent history for the New York Giants. And I don't know if I saw Justin Fields go up against that same Philadelphia Eagles team and compete. I believe it was 20-16 when they played each other late in the season with Jalen Hurts on the field. I watched Washington go out there and beat the only team that could beat Philadelphia all year long. So, riding high off that Minnesota Vikings win, I thought that we were going to go out there and compete a little bit more. And, the game just got away from us so fast. The way that the Philadelphia Eagles were scoring on their first couple of drives, it was like our defense was a major, major liability. And I think we overlooked that leaving the Minnesota Vikings games. When I show you the stats right there from how Kirk Cousins pretty much destroyed our secondary, nobody was going into the second game being like, oh, my God, man, like our defense is really going to be one of the major pieces that's going to let us down along with the offense side of the ball. And the one guy who I felt like really didn't get a chance to even get going in that game was Saquon Barkley, who was averaging over 5 yards per carry against the Vikings.
Yeah, the Eagles game, we were going to lose that game no matter what, if we're being honest. Obviously, as a fan going into that game, after your first playoff win, you try to convince yourself, oh, maybe the Eagles will come out slow. They're off the bye. We saw what happened to the Packers with Aaron Rodgers when they went 15-1 en route to our Super Bowl season. The Packers came out really sluggish. It was the complete opposite. The Eagles came out rested. They came out ready to go. They had a great game plan. And let's be honest, where are they much better than us? In the trenches. They devoured us at the point of attack on both sides of the ball. And that's where that game was lost. Like, we were going to lose that game no matter what, just based off the trench play. They demolished us up at the point of attack. I did not love the offensive game plan in that game, but I don't think it would have mattered. I just don't.
A lot of people say that when I bring that up. They're like, I don't think it would have mattered. And for me, it's just about giving your team the best shot to win the game.
I agree. I think they should have. Like, if I'm going to think back to that game, I think Dable went for it, I thought, way too early around midfield on a 4th down. I thought
first drive of the game.
Yeah, I thought they should have punted. And I thought that they got too far away from the run. They needed to have a more balanced offense, knowing that the Eagles were going to be able to dominate the line of scrimmage if Daniel Jones had to drop back and throw the football. So I didn't love the offensive game plan going into that game. But like I said, I think we lose that game by at least 14 points, no matter what we do. We were just overmatched. And I think it was a wake-up call. And it's not a bad thing. It's a bad thing when you lose, but it's not a bad thing to realize where we're at as an organization.
Yeah.
It was still a great year. We still showed a lot of progress, but it was a wake-up call at the end of the year that said, okay, this team needs to get a lot better up at the point of attack. And what did Joe Shane do? He gets A'Shaun Robinson, he gets Nacho, he drafts a center. So he clearly tried to address that this offseason. He gets Bobby Okereke. That should help the run defense as well. So
our linebackers were terrible last year.
Oh, the worst in the league. Yeah. But I think he did as good of a job as you could have hoped this offseason in trying to improve that area on the football team. Is it a finished product yet? No. Like, this offensive line still has more growing to do. I still think it's probably the biggest question mark on the offense, at least going into the year. And as they go, this offense will go. Like, I think the offense is at least going to be close to league average pretty much no matter what, just based off the play caller. And I do think Jones is a good quarterback. But if we want to become a top 8, top 9, top 10 offense, this offensive line is going to have to get close to league average. That's why I keep saying Evan Neal's the key to this team. That to me is the
hasn't had a great start, man. Dealing with that concussion right now. I think he really needs those reps in Detroit right now. I'm not losing hope in Evan Neal as a player, but as far as taking that leap that I think a lot of people expected to happen this year, I can't make a determination from camp, but I am feeling like, okay, we might have to be dealing with some average to below average play at right tackle.
See, to me, average would be a leap. That's what I'm hoping for.
That would be great for us.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for this year. I'm not expecting him to be a great tackle this year. I want him to be an average right tackle in the NFL. If he's that, I think this offense could be top 10 in the league.
Yeah, and I more think like the leap being an average leap, not being like that leap that we all, I think with what happened with Andrew Thomas, you know how Giants fans can get. I'm guilty of this myself. We like to compare and be like, oh, well, Andrew Thomas started off slow. Evan Neal's going to pick it up, and he's going to be, a bookend tackle here within the year. And that's what we're all hoping for. I was just watching Talking Giants before me and you went live, their stream that they did earlier, and they were talking about that. Like, Bobby said that his goal would be to have the best 2 tackles in the NFL. And I'm like, we have a shot at that. We drafted a guy, top 10, 2 guys with top 10 draft capital. Long term, yes.
We have a shot at that. This year, we don't. But
definitely not this year.
Yeah, long term, I agree. We have a shot at it, yes.
And a lot of people have to factor in, too, that interior line play, you're as a right tackle, you're going to benefit from better interior line play. And Evan Neal did not have that last year. There were plenty of times where you just saw confusion on the right side. So I'm crossing my fingers that, that we can iron that all out and Evan Neal can come out here and at least have, like you said, an average season. That I think that will put us in position to have this offense bounce somewhere into like the top 10, top 15, possibly, if we, do what
I think it'll be, if he's an average right tackle and we stay healthy, that's of course a huge if too. Daniel Jones, Andrew Thomas, Waller stays relatively healthy. I would be surprised if we weren't top 10, if he was an average right tackle, but that's a big if. But that to me is the key to the offense this year for sure.
Yeah, definitely is. That offensive line is going to be a major thing. Shout out to the homie one time, Joseph Clark in the building. He says prediction, second best O in the NFC East and top 5 in the NFC. How you feeling about that?
I don't hate that prediction. I mean, I'm not as far as top 5 in the. I mean, I'd have to think about the NFC, but the NFC is not very good. When you look around the league in terms of the offenses, I don't think it's crazy to think we could be better than every team in the NFC South offensively. I think we definitely could be. I don't think it's crazy. Yeah, I don't think it's crazy to think we could be better than the Packers. You don't know what you're going to get with Jordan Love. I don't think it's crazy.
I got four teams, I think, that are going to be above us.
Vikings will be better offensively.
Detroit.
Their defense stinks. Eagles are given. And the Niners. Eagles. Lions.
You got to throw the Cowboys in there, too, I think.
We're top 5 or 6. I think that's fair to say.
I'll go top 10, and I'll go second best. Oh, so he's saying we'll be better than at least the Cowboys or the Eagles, one of them. So I like that. At least he prefaced it with that. But I don't think we'll be better than the Eagles. Yeah.
Cowboys, I could see us getting close.
A lot of people, I think, are kind of overlooking this. We'll get to this topic in a little bit, but like the Cowboys are a back-to-back 12-win team here. And I just think people think like they were just like some 9-win team last year. Like they were a really good team, but they fell short in the playoffs and the matchup in the second round. People forget that they actually won a first-round playoff game last year. A lot of people forget that.
This is the way I look at it. Last year, I view us as basically we had 10 wins. We should have won that Washington game. So if you look at it that way, if we would have split with Dallas, they're an 11-win team and we're an 11-win team. So beat Dallas once this year and you can close the gap. It comes from within the division.
It does. We got to start there. That's a fact. And shout out to the homie Thrill Collins, man. Dave Gettleman on Twitter one time in the building, man. Appreciate that super sticker one time, fam. All right, let's keep it moving, man. I really want this to be a concise type of stream that for people that are coming back and looking at this, it flows well and whatnot. We got a tornado about to hit here in Washington, D.C. right now where I'm at. So, yeah, if you see me just disappear, bro, I'll pop back up on the stream with candles lit and all kind of shit. We'll see how it goes, though. But let's go to this next topic here one time, man, and we'll see what your thoughts are on this one. All right, let me get this super chat off the screen one time, and we'll see how this one is vibing for my man Entertainer. So the question here is, which veteran wide receiver do you see having the most impact here? And, I got 3 guys in mind I want to talk about. You got Sterling Shepard coming back off the ACL tear. Sterling Shepard has never had a 1,000-yard season. His rookie year in 2016 was probably his best year with 65 receptions, 683 yards, and 8 touchdowns. That's really damn good for Sterling Shepard. I remember when Darius Slayton came in 2019, and he also had 8 touchdowns. It'd be nice to get back to that. You also got Jamison Crowder, who the Beard was a big fan of. He was down here in Washington for a little while, went up top to New York and played for the Jets for a little bit. Hasn't played more than 12 games since 2019. He did that with the Jets. 78 receptions, though, on 122 targets. That surprised me. 833 yards, 6 touchdowns. And then you got Cole Beasley, who I posted a picture of him today, and I was like, I want to see Cole Beasley show up week 1 for the Dallas revenge game with the missing tooth like he had that one time. Cole Beasley was pretty productive, man, from 2019 to 2021. He had back-to-back seasons with 82 receptions. In 2021, he had 693 yards, only 1 touchdown. 2020, he had 967 yards, 4 touchdowns. And back to 2019, he had 67 receptions, 778 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So for me, I can totally understand why Brian Daboll brought in Cole Beasley, especially being familiar with his system. And I got a chance to actually ask Pat Leonard some questions. This was featured in my last video. And he talked about why Cole Beasley could come in and just get reps with the ones right away. And he talked about the relationship that Cole Beasley has with Brian Daboll is a very tight-knit, tough relationship. He even said that they were trying to get him in the building last year. Cole Beasley was trying to figure out if he wanted to move or something like that, where he wanted his family to live. He's committed back to football here. I'm excited about Cole Beasley. For me, it's Cole Beasley. I think Sterling Shepard is probably like a close second, but for me, it's going to be Cole Beasley, and I think Jamison Crowder might be the odd man out. But what are you thinking about this one here?
I mean, it really could go to who stays healthiest in camp. I think it's really close between all 3 of these guys. I'll go over why I think each one, the strengths of each player. Beasley, like you said, is familiarity with Daboll. I also think he's just such a natural replacement for Wan'Dale Robinson. If Wan'Dale is not going to be ready to start the year, of course, Art Stapleton tweeted, I still don't think he's going to be ready to start the year. I still don't think Wan'Dale's going to be ready to go to start the year, but maybe he's back by week 3 or week 4. But until such time Wan'Dale is back, yeah, I think if Wan'Dale's not going to start the year, I think Cole Beasley's making this team. I think he's just such a natural replacement for him. If Wan'Dale is ready to go, Beasley may not make the team. So that's why I really think he's here. But what I'll say is I don't think Beasley at 34 years old would have showed up to Giants camp if he didn't think he had a legitimate chance to make this team. He wouldn't have wasted his time. So I think he's going to make this team. I think he's going to start on this team. I don't know if he finishes the year on this team as Wan'Dale comes back. But yeah, I would guess for the first 3, 4, 5 weeks, he'll have some kind of role in this offense. Crowder, the only reason I could see Crowder making this team is he carries special teams value because he's a punt returner. And when you're talking about the back end of your wide receiving core, you want that. You want guys that can contribute to special teams. So that's why I could see him getting the nod, but may not. And then Shep, I think Shep is actually probably the best of these 3 wide receivers overall, but he carries injury concerns. And I don't know if he's necessarily as good of a fit in the slot for this specific offense as Cole Beasley, which is why I think they brought Beasley in here to begin with. So if Wan'Dale's not going to start the year, I think I agree with you at least to start the year. For the first 4 or 5 weeks, out of these 3 wide receivers, I would guess Beasley would have the biggest role.
I'm with you on that. Good
I just
to see that we're locked in.
I just don't think he'll have a big role for all 17 games.
Right. Because when Wan'Dale comes back, they're going to try to implement him. I mean, the same thing happened with Richie James last year. He played, he was getting a ton of snaps, over 60% of the snaps in all those games. And then all of a sudden, Wan'Dale Robinson came back, got healthy, and it was like, hey, you got to go take a back seat over there. I remember thinking, like, are they going to maybe try to move Richie James out to the outside? Because for me, I felt like Richie James was a guy that, created separation in a great way. And some of his statistics were up near the top of the league. Of all wide receivers with over 50 targets, he had the highest catch rate in the entire NFL of all wide receivers. I thought it was one of the most surprising stats of the year. But when Wan'Dale came back, Richie James, they really were just like, hey, go return punts. We're not really going to be putting you in the slot too much. And Wan'Dale had that 100-yard game. I forget who that was against. It
was against the Lions.
The Lions. Yeah, and we kind of got dogged in that game as well, too, trying to keep up with them. But, yeah, I agree with all you said there. I think Wan'Dale Robinson is like the future. He's the prototype of what they want at that slot position. And everything you said about Sterling Shepard, I do think Sterling Shepard's probably going to see some snaps in a bunch of different locations. You might see him line up in the slot here and there, but I think the bulk of the snaps are going to come from the outside.
Yeah, I think like Paris Campbell is what Shep's role is going to be in this offense if he's going to play, and I think Campbell's well above him. So the fact that Wan'Dale is not probably going to start the year, I think out of these 3, it bodes the best for Beasley to have some kind of role to start the year. So I would lean with Beasley out of these 3.
It's interesting, too, because Paris Campbell's a guy that can play the slot, too. So, like, while Wan'Dale is kind of nursing the injury, I expect Paris Campbell to be in the slot probably more than all of them, And then Hyatt is probably going to be able to do a little bit of damage from the slot, too. I'm looking to see, like, if the Giants are going to throw some 4 wide receiver packages out.
I think
know
they're
a lot
going
of people talking about 12 personnel and 2 tight ends and stuff like that. But, like, I want to see the spread the field. You know, when I play Madden Entertainer, let me tell you how I play Madden, okay? I go 4 verts every play, get to the line, and I make the audible at the line. And I don't run the ball. I literally pass the ball on every damn down. It could get me into trouble. The last time I played Madden, I had Daniel Jones throwing like 4 or 5 interceptions. So
it depends on the opponent. Like
Facts.
the Cowboys, for example, I don't think you'll see a lot of 4 wide. I'd be surprised if you do. They have a great pass rush with Micah Parsons and obviously Tank Lawrence, who destroyed us last year. So I think
destroyed Evan Neal. Oh my God.
Yeah, destroyed him. So I expect a lot of 12 personnel week 1 against Dallas. Do not expect them to unleash it, throw the ball 35 times. They got to be smart with the football. You have to realize the strengths of your opponents. So I think in that game, I expect the Giants to come out with a similar offense to what they had last year, but take a few more shots.
Now, flip side of that, right, for the slot, do you think that they're going to try to line up Adoree Jackson in the slot, being that CeeDee Lamb took about 80% of his snaps from the slot last year?
He's been getting a lot of reps in the slot. Every time I hear about a practice, Adoree's playing in the slot. So I think they're at least preparing him to have the ability to move into the slot based off of certain opponents. And they're going to have a lot of versatility in that secondary as well, with how well Hawkins is reportedly playing. Of course, Deonte Banks, who I'm really excited about, and Flott, who I think could be really good too for the Giants. So I think there'll be times where Adoree does play in the slot. And like you said, week 1, it could make a lot of sense with CeeDee Lamb being their best target.
That's real. I wish I could. I should have pulled up the polls because I kind of want to see how the chat is reacting to some of these and seeing if they're agreeing with us as well. So, Beard, I know you in the chat, man. Give me some updates on those polls as well as we go through
on my end. I guess I got to pull up a new chat. The chat's frozen on my end.
Yeah, it looks frozen on my side too here.
Okay.
StreamYard.
Okay, yeah.
I know StreamYard added it where you can actually like type from the app now instead of having to keep the chat open, which is pretty cool. So big shout out to them.
Okay.
Yeah, and the super chats are in a separate tab and whatnot. All right, so I want to fly through these. You know, we're gonna try to get all the family up out of here in at least like a good. I ain't trying to have you here for 2 hours, bro. We'll try to do like an hour and a half or something like that. So I do want to fly through these, and I know a lot of people are itching to ask their own questions as well. But let's get off into this next one here. So I really like this question because I think that there's an obvious answer here, right? But there are some other positional groups I think that need to be discussed as well. So what position group worries you the most entering the season? For me, you know, I definitely got to start with just like talking about the offensive line, okay? I'm extremely confident in Andrew Thomas. I'm confident in Ben Bredeson. I think he's going to go out there. That left side should be straight. My worries, Evan Neal, Mark Lewinsky, and I'm a little bit worried about JMS a little bit too. I just, you know, it's a lot of pressure to be on a rookie center out there. With the Giants in our fan base, we kind of expect people to just, because they were first-round picks, jump in there and be plug and play. And I'm just worried that might not pan out that way. Long-term, I think John Michael Smith is going to be a guy for sure. Now, the other units that I think are a little bit sketchy here is I think we could question the wide receiver unit. You know, I've talked about Paris Campbell have to be a guy who can fill Richie James' shoes. You need a guy like Darius Slayton to take no steps back. Darius Slayton, if anything, needs to take steps forward. And we're banking on a guy in Jalen Hyatt to come out here and stretch the field. So I am worried a little bit about the wide receiver core. I don't know if it's quite at the top of my list, but I'm a little bit worried. And I'm also worried about the secondary. I mean, that's why I asked you about Adoree Jackson moving to the slot, because so far in camp, man, there's been a lot of question marks here in the secondary. I live here in Washington, D.C. on North Capitol. Actually got to chop it up with a couple of Commanders fans today in our spaces. I was talking with the homie Caleb, and we asked him about Bobby McCain, and it was just like burnt toast and coffee time. It's Donnie Simpson in the morning. He's probably not going to make the team. Now, Flott, I was watching Talking Giants before we got on air, and Bobby and Justin were kind of like, man, I don't know what's going on with Flott, but it's not looking great, right? So I'm a little bit worried about Cordell Flott. Darnay Holmes, I mean, I think we know what we have in Darnay Holmes as a player. That should worry us in the secondary. So for me, it's like Adoree Jackson is the guy who's, you know, the staple in the secondary that I think we don't have to worry about too much. I like Justin Pinnock, too. I thought he did some good things last year. What's his name did burn him on a deep route in the Washington game, Jahan Dotson. But outside of that, I thought he played pretty good football. So I'm pretty confident in Pinnock. I'm confident in Xavier McKinney, obviously. It's that opposite safety, and it's that opposite corner, and it's the slot corner for me. We got the unknowns with Trey Hawkins now, 6th-rounder out of Old Dominion. You know, can he come in and really get some snaps? There was a statistic here that surprised the hell out of me. 6th-rounder out of Old Dominion. There were only 7 former Old Dominion Monarchs in the NFL before the draft, and one of them was on our team, and so Shane Simonez, which was kind of weird to me. But I don't want to put too much on Trey Hawkins' plate. But like I said, if he can come out here and be a gem, that'll totally be like finding $1 in the couch. So what are your thoughts on this? Is the offensive line that unit that really worries you the most? I know we talked about Evan Neal a lot. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, health in general, I worry about too, right? Like, while we have a lot of players with injury concerns, right? So that's a big worry too. But if you're asking me about a unit, yeah, I think it starts with the line. I'm definitely going to touch on the secondary, like you said, though. But it starts with the line. Like, that's the key to this season, at least from the offensive end. I know what I have in the quarterback. I know Daniel Jones is at least a good quarterback. I know what I have with Saquon Barkley. I know what I have with Darren Waller when he's on the field. I think we have, when I couple our offensive play caller and the versatility of our wide receiving core, I'm not too worried about it if they stay relatively healthy. We don't have a number one, but with the creativity of Kafka and Dable, I think we have enough versatile weapons and enough depth to be able to create offense if we could block. But the offensive line is by far my biggest worry. Yeah, you should absolutely be, scared to hell about this offensive line right now because we don't have any proof. We have hope. We have what we think will be a better line, and I think there's several reasons why I believe it will be. The question is, how much better will it be? But yeah, I think you have to go into the year expecting Evan Neal to be better. The question is, how much better? And I think you have to go into the year expecting the offensive line as a whole to be better. I think due in large part to the fact that it's Daniel Jones' second year in the scheme. I think a quarterback has a lot to do with the way that an offensive line plays too, and the fact that he'll be more familiar in the offense. That should help assist the offensive line because you figure he'll be more decisive. He'll be more confident getting the ball out, not just him, but the other players in the offense more familiar with the scheme. So that in itself, I think, should help assist the offensive line, but it's still a major question mark. You don't know what you have in Evan Neal. I'm excited about John Michael Schmitz, but he's a rookie. He's a 24-year-old rookie that you think probably should transition quicker than maybe a 21-year-old rookie, but he's a rookie nevertheless. And I will say going up against Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams every day in practice should only help him grow quicker. But he's still a question mark. He can't be much worse than what we had last year with Feliciano, but he's still a major question mark. I agree with you with Bredesen. I think he's an average, slightly below average guard, but that's great for us from what we've had in the past. So I think you could get by with him this year. I'm excited to see if Azudu could ultimately be thrown into that starting lineup. I don't think to start the year. I think it'll be Glow. But hopefully, eventually, as the year progresses, Azudu will get some experience on that offensive line. But yeah, the line is by far my biggest worry going into this year. Andrew Thomas, of course, is incredible. But outside of that, you have 4 question marks.
Now, before you pivot to the other positions, right? Yeah. What are your thoughts on the offensive line last year? Grade them. Give me a grade for the offensive line last year, and then give me the grade of where you think the floor is going to be for this year.
When you say grade, do you mean individual or just as a unit?
As a unit.
Run blocking, I'd give them a C+. I thought they were pretty good in run blocking. Pass protection, D-. Like early on in the year, a lot of times the Giants would have 12 personnel. So people would be like, oh, the offensive line's holding up pretty good. Yeah, they were holding up pretty good because they only had 2 wide receivers going out to run routes because they needed max protection. So the pass protection is still bad last year. But, you got to figure it's going to get better this year. The question is, how much better? Can that D- go to a C? Can it go to a C? If it could get to a C, this offense could be really good this year, in my opinion. But that's the biggest key as far as the offensive line goes. I might even give a B- in terms of run blocking. They were pretty good in run blocking last year.
B- last year?
Yeah, but the pass protection was not good.
Yeah, especially that right side. So, touch on these other units as well. How you feel about the wide receivers and the cornerbacks as well?
Okay, wide receiver. I obviously don't love the unit. There's not a number one in this unit, but it's a deep receiving core. And I think the one advantage, and I don't even want to call it an advantage because it's always clearly more of an advantage to have a number one, to have a Jamar Chase, to have a, Justin Jefferson. But I think the one interesting thing with a core like this, when you have several different wide receivers, a very deep core that could do different things. You think about it, you have 2 burners, you have Slayton, you have Hyatt. You have multiple guys that could play in the slot, the Campbells, the Shepherds, the Beasleys, the Wandells when he comes back. You have a Hodgins who's kind of what we thought what we were hoping Galladay could be, a tall threat that could pose a threat in the red zone. Of course, Waller's a chess piece. So I think when you have a lot of versatility like that and you don't have like an alpha outside of Waller, it kind of gives you the freedom as a play caller where there's no egos in this core. And week to week, you could kind of pick on the deficiencies of your defensive opponent. And if you feel like, oh, well, if we go more slot heavy this week, you may be able to take advantage of this squad. This squad looks like they would struggle more against guys with burning speed on the outside. So I think that's one interesting facet to this core just because of how deep it is. And I think there's going to be no egos. I think Dable one week may go with a completely different receiving core. than the next week based on the opponent he's going up against, because I think we have 5 or 6 guys that they could throw out there and feel at least somewhat confident. Is it a great core? Of course not. But I think their overall weapons is at least around average. When you factor in Barkley, Waller, the overall core, Daniel Jones's legs, I think there's enough there with the play caller that we have in place to have a very good offense if we can block.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. A lot of it relies on this offensive line. And I like the point that you said about, Daniel Jones being in his second year, because I've said this saying for a while, and I didn't originate this saying, but I pulled it from somewhere, that a decisive quarterback can be the best offensive lineman you can have. And Tom Brady is proof of that, just getting rid of the ball quickly, making the decisions fast. And I think Daniel Jones is going to be a better processor this year. But that offensive line, nonetheless, definitely going to have to hold up. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to run a quick commercial break real quick, because I want to refresh my chat and see if because I see some super chats coming in and people are talking and it's not popping up on our end. So I'm going to run this commercial real quick. And then after I run this commercial, I'm going to refresh, come back. Hopefully everything is all good to go.
With the 6th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Daniel Jones, quarterback.
Hey, so they do love a quarterback. Jabril Cox made the tackle. And Jones slow getting up. On 4th and 5, Jones steps up, takes off, he's in, touchdown!
Gettleman is proving to be a terrible GM, and this was an idiotic move.
No more Odell.
That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen.
We're down at 5. Jones throws, wide open.
Easy touchdown, second rushing touchdown for Daniel Jones, and they are in position.
I pulled up the chat on YouTube, by the way, if that makes it easier for you. It's
Yeah, I
updated
had it
there.
on YouTube as well here, but when people send in super chats and stuff, I would like to put them on the screen. So refreshing it definitely did fix all that, man. So appreciate y'all patience there one time. That's a video back from 2021 that I created before the season, asking fans if they believed in Daniel Jones. I filmed that here in my basement. Shout out to the beard who got me that signed Daniel Jones helmet, man. I'm hoping that value goes up a little bit this year.
It's going to go up. It's going to go up.
All right, so let's get off into this next one here, man.
By the way, real quick, I also just wanted to touch on the corners real quick.
Oh, yeah, please do that before I move on. Please do.
Yeah. I said it. People called me crazy on Twitter when I said our most valuable player, because I think a lot of people get the term most valuable confused with best. And a lot of people came at me because I think I had Barkley 8th, maybe 7th or 8th. And that's no disrespect to Barkley. I love Barkley. I friggin' love Barkley. But I had a Dory, I think 4th, because I think he is so valuable to this year's team. Because like you said, everybody, it's all young pups back there.
Facts.
You don't know what you're gonna get with Deonte Banks. You don't know what you're gonna get with Hawkins. You don't know what you're gonna get with Flott. You don't know what you're gonna get with Aaron Robinson. So it's a bunch of young, inexperienced players. So yeah, well, I am really encouraged and really excited about the long-term, growth of this position, because there's a lot of potential there. Cordell Flott is 6'1", ran a 4.4. You got Hawkins, who's 6'3". The guy's got 33-inch arms. Like, he's got all the measurables you could think of. He's looked really good in camp. I'm really excited about Deonte Banks. I love that pick. I said it long before we drafted him. That's the guy I wanted on day one this past
You were like
draft.
spot on a few of these draft picks this year. I know you called JMS, but you were thinking earlier. We ended up getting them later in the draft and whatnot.
Yeah, well, after we took Banks, I was hoping we get JMS. So I would say it was more hope than expecting, but I was thrilled when we got him. But Deonte Banks was the guy that when I looked at him, like, he fits the scheme. The upside's there. And you look at what this coaching staff did the year before, I think they're going to look for schematic fit and guys with a high ceiling, like a Cordell Flott the previous year, guys that they feel like they could build with. So I thought he made the most sense. So long-term, I love at least the potential of the secondary. I think they still need to continue to improve it, because I think they're going to lose a Dory next year. I think they'll draft another corner relatively early or sign one. But for this year, look at the receivers we're going up against, Awthentik. You name a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, we're playing him. Cooper Kupp, we're playing him.
Stephon Diggs.
The Stephon Diggs, we're playing him. Devontae Adams, we're playing him. The boys on the Eagles, we're playing him. Stephon Diggs, we're playing him. Garrett Wilson, we're playing him.
A.J. Brown.
They are going to get put to the test. Terry McLaurin. So
Terry, people be
like
sleeping on Terry.
Like this is going the cornerbacks are
Oh,
definitely gonna get tested this year.
Seattle, bro. Whew.
Yeah, so it's definitely a big worry of mine. But I think it's trial by fire, and I think they'll get better as the year goes on. And you got to hope that front four, which is really strong, or at least we think it's going to be, with a healthy Azeez Ojulari, can help assist the secondary.
That's real right there. I like the way you broke that down. Let me just get off some of these super chats here real quick. Shout out to the homie one time, Matt Singh in the building. He says, this is the year we take the leap. Go Giants. I know that's a fact, man. I hope you're right on that, Matt. I'm crossing my fingers, man, because I really want this to be a year where we can not only build and develop like outside of the win column, but within the win column, because I like that we won our first playoff game last year, but I'm trying to apply some pressure this year. So we'll see how things go. But big shout out to Matt one time. Appreciate you supporting the channel. That means a lot over here. Shout out to the homie one time, not a JTAC, one time for the $4.99 super chat. Says, with all the camp hype around Hyatt, what are your expectations? Seems nowadays rookie wide receivers have bigger impact than in the past. I'm going to say, I said this earlier today, man. By week 4, week 5, we should know this guy is a star and he's going to be a star. Now, will he put up star numbers this year? I don't know about that, but you're going to get a couple of big plays by week 5. I'm guaranteeing it.
Listen, I'm excited for Hyatt. How could you not be when you watch the guy play? Like, he just his speed. I mean, it looks like everybody else is running in quicksand when they're trying to go up against this guy. But like I said about camp with Jones, I'm going to say the same thing about Hyatt. I'm excited. When I'm on Twitter, I'm a ultra fan. I'm LPG on Twitter. I'll be the first to say it. I am an ultra fan, okay? I go there to have fun with fans. That's what I do. I don't like to be negative. That's me.
Yeah.
But in reality, when we come to my YouTube channel, I talk about this team. Hyatt, he's still an unknown. There's been plenty of wide receivers that had blazing speed and didn't do much in the NFL. Does he look encouraging? Absolutely. But let's not raise the bar too high.
Nah, let's put it way up there.
Because then people are going to go crazy. So I'm like, let me see this guy actually run routes in an actual NFL game without shorts on. I think the potential is off the charts. I think he could be a really good player.
Yeah.
But I still think there's going to be a little bit of a transition. I don't think he's just going to be thrown out there and he's going to be a superstar day one.
Right.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope he's incredible. But I'm going to expect a little bit of a transition this year.
Yeah, a lot of people have been making a comparison to Odell Beckham Jr. and, you know, that he'll have that kind of trajectory. And I just think that those are large shoes to fill, especially in your first 3 seasons in the NFL. 35 touchdowns for Odell in the first 3 seasons, double digits every year. That guy, Odell hit the ground running. By week 4, Odell was going crazy. I remember that very well. I think Hyatt can be a guy who can, like, be not a gadget, but similar to a gadget.
I love Hyatt. I'm very excited about Hyatt. He's not Odell.
He's not Odell. Yeah,
he's not Odell. Don't expect that. But he could be a really nice piece. What I could envision Hyatt being is Deshaun Jackson. That's a
great comp.
That's what I could envision him being.
Here's the thing, too, though, is like Deshaun Jackson was putting up some crazy numbers.
Deshaun Jackson's a borderline Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I think he's a Hall of Famer. He went crazy.
I mean, he's my most hated player in the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
In the history of sports.
The punt return was just
couldn't stand him. But I think that is more along the lines of the type of wide receiver I could see Hyatt being.
It's the best way to put it, too, the type of wide receiver. I think that's what he could be, a guy who's going to, he's going down the field and he's going to be used as a gadget, like a decoy, I feel like, where he'll be running these flyer routes and sometimes not get the ball, but it should be able to open up things for everybody else on the offense. And then I just think with what we have with Darren Waller, if all goes well, I just see Hyatt being a big playmaker. You know, Darius Slayton, and shout out to Justin Pennick, who I did see in the chat earlier, he posted this, and I found this like on Google. He posted this a while back, where Darren Waller had posted explosive play numbers of over 20 yards. Even in the seasons where he didn't play all his games, he had like 9 explosive plays, and he had like 13 explosive plays. Darius Slayton led us last year with, I believe it was 11 explosive plays. Yep. The next pass catcher had 3. So we need that. We need those explosive plays to be able to compete with these teams like the Philadelphia Eagles, like the Dallas Cowboys, who are putting up big numbers and making these explosive plays. I'm with you on it. I don't want to be like, I don't want to set the expectations too high. But I want to see this rookie go crazy.
He's still a rookie. We're not talking about a first-round pick. We're talking about a third-round pick. But do I see the potential? Yeah, I'm as excited as everybody else when I watch the clips. Like, everybody else looks like they're running in slow motion. And would I be shocked if he ends up being the number 1 wide receiver on this team by year's end? No, I would not.
Yeah, I'm expecting it kind of. By year's end, I'm expecting it.
I'm not going to go into the year saying I expect it, but I would not be blown away if that does happen at some point this year.
Big facts, man. Shout out to not a JTAC or JTAC new face in the building. Definitely appreciate you pulling up, man. Hope you digging the vibes, man. Y'all hit that subscribe button if you're digging the vibes here on Authentic and the Beard. During the season, we do 4 shows a week of 2 hours. We do previews, recaps of the NFC East, all teams. And then on Sundays, we also do a show called The Parlay where it's like real laid back, fantasy driven, just kind of like sharing information. So if you're digging the vibes, man, during the season, we're going to be extremely active. So shout out to y'all in the chat. Shout out to the fam, and shout out to the day ones who've been rocking with us when we had like 14 subscribers on this channel. And people were like, why y'all ain't got more subs? Like, you guys got nice cameras and nice mics. Well, I'm a producer, so that stuff was already here. But shout out to all of y'all, man. And shout out to the homie Bass one time in the building. He says, keep it up, fellas. Love the conversation and the production. I'm pretty sure this is Bass from Twitter, who hosts the dopest Twitter spaces out there. If you're a Giants fan and you want to come in and talk ball, sometimes it gets a little barbershop-esque a little bit, and we be kind of going at each other a little bit heavy, but at the end of the day, it's all for the love of the sport. But big shout out to Bass for supporting the channel one time.
Yeah,
all
man.
right.
Awesome.
So let's get off into this. Let me see where. I'm just checking the schedule, seeing how we looking right now. How to
where are we at now? Where are we going?
We had about 5. Okay, this one's really good, and things are going to ramp up. When we get to about 6, it might the debate might get a little heated.
6 we're going to explode. But what
Right,
I don't even know what
off.
topic is this. Is this 4?
This is let me see, 1, 2, 3. This is going to be 4. This is going to be 4.
Let's go to 4.
Get to it. And I think this is a really just a question that everyone is asking themselves right now, because last year we relied on Daniel Jones, a lot of his legs, Saquon Barkley running the rock. You know, everybody's going to be talking about the Daniel Jones, the 15 touchdowns all damn year until we get out here and we play our first game against Dallas. So we know that it was a conservative, quarterback-friendly type of, offense in the way that we operated last year. So I wanted to propose this question to you. What are your expectations for the way the Giants offense will operate this year? And I just want to talk about some stats from last year. So last season, we were 19th in total yards, 333 total yards per game, 18th in points per game at 21.2 points. And that was a little higher than I actually thought. I thought we were going to be around 18, 19, but 21.2 points per game. That was 18th in the NFL. We were 26th in passing yards per game, 187 yards per game. That one bothers me. 20th in red zone attempts, but I will give us one good statistic here. We were 5th in red zone efficiency, scoring on 64% of the times or the trips that we made into the red zone. So with all that said, we know there's a lot of room to improve here offensively, especially in the pass attack. Do you expect the offense to look a bit like last year and improve from what they did, or do you expect this to be a totally different type of scheme and we're just going to start to stretch the field out here?
Yeah, this may not be the answer that some people listening may want to hear. I think this is going to be a week-to-week offense. I don't think it's going to be an offense that is going to have the same type of identity every week. I don't think it's going to be an offense that's going to go out there and throw 40 times a game. And some weeks we may, and some weeks we may not. I think the offensive philosophy is going to be somewhat similar to last year. I think we're going to throw a little bit more, obviously. There's a reason we added all these weapons. But I think when we do throw, it's going to be much more frequent that we throw down the field. Like you said earlier, last year we only had 27 passing plays that went for over 20 yards. Darren Waller by himself had 9 in 9 games. He was on pace for 17. You add him, you add Hyatt. That's what Hyatt brings. He brings big plays. You add Paris Campbell, fully capable of creating big plays. So, and again, it's all dependent on the line. Are they going to give us enough time to get these wide receivers down the field? But yes, I think this year I expect more big plays. But in terms of run frequency, I think it'll be a little bit more tilted towards the pass. But last year we were 11th in run frequency. I think we ran the ball, I want to say about 40. I can't remember the number, but we were 11th. Yeah, it was actually a little bit more pass, I think, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
It was barely a little bit more pass. I want to say it was like 50.5.
Yeah, so whatever it was, I think it'll be slightly more pass, like 50. If it was 50-50, I'll say 53-47 this year. Yeah. But because you can't get away from your strength. Saquon Barkley is still the bread and butter, and I'd like to see him get more involved in the passing game this year, even though he had a lot of catches, maybe get him more down the field. And Jones, Jones's legs are a massive weapon. So I still think, and, we're a better run blocking team at this point. So I still think we're going to focus heavily on the run. But, yeah, I think we'll throw a little bit more. And when we do throw, I think it'll be much more common that we take some shots down the field. So I expect a more explosive offense, but I still don't expect an offense that's going to get completely away from their identity. I think we'll be balanced, and I think certain weeks we're going to be more run heavy, and certain weeks we're going to be more pass heavy. I don't think we're going to be a team like the Chiefs where you could say going into every week they're going to throw 35, 40 times no matter what. I don't think that's the type of team we're going to be. I think we're going to try to take advantage of the opponents we're going up against.
Yeah, I'm right there with you a little bit here. I think that like a lot of fans are expecting this to just kind of turn into this like aerial type of offense. But our bread and butter is the running game, and we do have Saquon Barkley in the backfield. Now, Daniel Jones last year, lowest in the league as far as average depth of target, yards per attempt, down at the bottom of the league. Herbert was down there at the bottom of the league too. I talked about this in the spaces earlier. Herbert's leading wide receiver was Austin Eckler. He had 124 targets on the year.
Yeah.
His average depth of target was like almost -1 yards. So it goes to show you how much they were checking down. Now, I think that the way that the NFL is operating in the passing game now is starting to change a little bit. And I don't know if this will continue, this trend will continue, but a lot of teams are playing two safeties high, right? And a statistic that stands out to me is Patrick Mahomes. He had 31 touchdowns of under 10 air yards. So teams that are just scoring at will from, outside of the red zone, I don't think that's necessarily the formula that a lot of NFL teams are going for now. So if Daniel Jones comes in this year and it looks a lot like last year, it's not going to bother me one bit. I don't mind the dink and dunk type of system. I think that it's actually going to open up things down the field a little bit more to take those shots that you're talking about here, because you got Saquon Barkley, you got Waller, who's going to be able to eat up the middle of the field when he's not being a target down the field, which to me should open up things more for Slayton. When Slayton would go deep last year, every team knew it was coming. And even the balls that people were saying he dropped and whatnot, the one against Washington, which was a tough one. It was a good throw from Daniel Jones, too, that could have sealed that game. We only had 21 total yards in the second half of regulation in that game. Ended up being a tie. I think those type of situations are going to be few and far between now because you have more weapons. And also, we can't forget about Daniel Bellinger. Like, I think Bellinger is going to come out here and be a piece in this passing attack, be able to set teams up in 12 personnel, make them think that we're running. And those two guys should be able to get a lot of receptions in the middle of the field and in the flats of the field. I think we'll see a lot of that. Like, we saw a lot of Daniel Jones boot, quick throw to Daniel Bellinger last year. And this year, I think it'll be a little bit more depth when we're throwing the ball to Darren Waller. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't think it's going to be this crazy aerial assault. I really think it shouldn't be. You got to build upon what you did last season.
We were talking about it on Twitter yesterday, Awthentik, and I didn't agree with how low we had them. Sharp Football was 30th, our wide receiver and tight end combined. I'd have us probably 24th, 25th. That's probably where I would have us, but it's still in the bottom third of the league. So doesn't it make sense not to try to play like a team that's in the top third of the league in terms of trying to air it out? Like, why would you do that when you're going up against teams like that? Why would you play to their strength? You're like, if we're going up against Miami, for example, you probably don't want to get into a shootout. We don't have the artillery that they do. So, we will be more open, I think, to big plays this year and taking shots down the field. I still don't think we're completely getting away from our identity. I think we're going to be a balanced football team that based off our, week to week, based off of our opponent's strengths and weaknesses, some weeks will be more open to airing it out than others. But I still think we're going to be a team that's capable of doing both things, which at the end of the day is what you want. That's unpredictability. Yeah. You want a team that's capable of doing everything. That's what the Eagles do. The Eagles are like that. Obviously, they have better weapons, but one week they may run for 300 yards,
and then next week 300 the next.
So that's what you want. You want a team that's capable of doing both.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to stay balanced. Early on in the year, last year, what I noticed is the Giants would come out in the first half and pass the ball a lot more. Saquon Barkley's first half attempts were a drastic difference from his second half attempts. Throughout the whole entire year, he was first in second half attempts. In the beginning of the year, I'd say when we were 7-2, he was like down by 20. He was in the 20th range as far as first half rushing attempts. He ended up finishing around 4th or 5th, I believe, in the entire league. So I do think that we're going to be even more balanced. And I don't mean that in the fashion of saying like, our run-to-pass ratio numbers are going to be equal to what they were last year, around 50-50. I think we are going to pass a little bit more, but I think within the game, the balance will be a little bit better with the Giants, because there were just times, and the Eagles game in the playoffs is one of them. You gave the ball to Saquon Barkley on the first drive. He got a 4-yard run. He was averaging like about 4 yards per carry. He only touched the ball 4 times in the first half of that game. Yeah. And I know the game got away from them, but that, to me, is just not the formula for success for the Giants to win. You go back to the Minnesota Vikings playoff game where Saquon Barkley only had 9 attempts and he was averaging 5.9 yards per carry. I think we could have blew them out had we have controlled the clock in that game and kept Kirk Cousins on the sideline. Instead, we were doing a ton of throwing, but we were effective and we were getting in the end zone.
I think it depends. I think it depends on your opponent. If you're going certain opponents, I think it's going to be smarter to try to throw it a lot more. Certain opponents, when we play the 49ers, you want to grind that ball. When we play the Eagles, you want to grind that ball. When we play the Cowboys, you want to grind that ball. But I think that they're going to take more shots against those opponents than they have in the past.
And Daniel Jones, play action, one of the better quarterbacks in the league, man. I mean, his play action fakes are amazing. So I do think if we can get Saquon going early, it should open up some big plays down the field. And Saquon should see less stacked boxes this year. To me, it's just overall, this offense should just be a more efficient, well-oiled machine this year rather than last year. It's like we're just waiting for the big run to break from Saquon or from Daniel Jones.
I mean, yeah, you can make an argument that maybe it's a little bit biased, but it's definitely in the top 3 or 4. You can make an argument that the duo of Jones and Barkley out there together at the same time is the most lethal running threat in the NFL. Like the combination of both of them. So you think about the improved weapons around them, that's going to enhance them even more as runners, because now you have to honor Darren Waller, like you were saying. Now you can't stack the box. And if you do, Waller's going to make you pay. So I'm excited about this offense this year. I really am. I think I want to continue to say that. But I think there's reasons to, like I talked about with Jones being second year in the scheme. I also think with the play callers that we have, they could mask at least some of the deficiencies with the offensive line. So yeah. I think we'll be able to make do, and this line will be better. I don't know if it'll be average, but I think it'll be much closer to average than it was last year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And the chat just seems to be freezing up a ton here, so I'm going to use my phone here. Shout out to the homie Sal one time, man, for the $9.99 super chat. He says, props to my dude Awthentik with the GOAT production skills. Shout out to Sal one time. He says, now find me my third edge rusher and linebacker. I definitely agree with you on that. How you feel about that, Tanner?
I was praying we'd get Justin Houston. I always knew it was a pipe dream because I knew he was going to get more than what we were, able to get, but I thought he just made so much sense. I've been calling for Justin Houston for 3 years, a guy that I was hoping, because he's kind of an older guy, a guy that would be a great, rotational edge. He's got some familiarity with Wink. So I would have been so ecstatic with that. I think what's going to happen, if I had to guess, because obviously the Giants aren't looking to go out there and spend a lot of money. They'll probably wait till cut down day, and they'll see from around the league which edge rushers get cut, and then they'll bring in a few. That's what I think will probably happen. They'll probably bring in an edge rusher or two from around the league. That's what I think we're looking at. As far as linebacker, yeah, we could definitely use a little bit more depth there. It looks like Beavers at least has a decent shot to get the other starting job, which I think a lot of Giants fans are probably excited about. He was a fan favorite last year.
He looked great last year before he got hurt.
Yeah, but we still definitely need – I agree with Sal on that. We definitely need depth at both those positions.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't addressed more depth at the edge rusher position. Today, I actually heard that Zimenez was taking first-team reps, and I was just like, that's so wild because Ojulari was dealing with some kind of something that had him sidelined or something like that. So I just think we need more depth at the edge rusher. I mean, New York Giants, man, we're known for pass rush, and it's like lately it's just like you got Aziz, you got Thibodeau, and that obviously Dexter Lawrence in the middle of that defense, and Leonard Williams, I like what Leonard Williams brings, even though it doesn't show up too much on the stat box.
Hear me out. When people talk about breakout players, they usually talk about rookies. They talk about young players. They talk about Jalen Hyatt. They talk Deonte Banks, whoever. Leonard Williams is my breakout player this year.
I like that.
I think people are just forgetting about this guy.
They are.
They're just forgetting about this guy. And I know he was banged up last year, but now you add A'Shaun Robinson, you add Nacho. That's going to keep him more fresh at the end of these games. He's got Dexter Lawrence playing next to him. You have Aziz back. It's just going to help the overall front seven. I think Leonard, and a contract year, mind you.
Truth.
I think Leonard Williams is going to have a big year this year for the Giants.
I'm crossing my fingers, hoping you're right, man. Shout out to not a JTAC one more time, man. He sent in a $1.99 super chat one time. He said we need to use more running backs this year to keep 26 fresh. I like that because in the middle of the season there, you definitely saw a little bit of wear and tear from Saquon Barkley kind of breaking down a little bit. I think he ramped it back up towards the end of the year. And then lack of, touches in the playoffs really didn't get to show himself. But he did look healthy in the playoffs, but I definitely agree with you on that one. Shout out to Neil Believes one time with the $10 super chat. He says, you both are great. I look forward to seeing the offense this season. It will surprise a lot of people. And stand up in all capital letters, LFG Big Blue. Big shout out to Neil Believes one time, man. Definitely appreciate you supporting the channel. And Tanner, go ahead.
I see him on Twitter all the time, but he paid for it, so I got to give him one. Stand up, Neil Believes, man. Neil, man, good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. I'm telling you right now, if we win, don't get mad at me, guys. Whoever's in the chat that watches my channel, do not get mad at me on Sunday night, because if the Giants win, I will not have a voice. That's the stand-up on Sunday night. If we win that game, will be a record-breaking stand-up, and I will be doing the post-game live stream with no voice. Like, I'll have to be doing sign language. Like I'm gonna have no voice.
Yeah, the stand-ups get crazy in those live streams. And for those of y'all, I know most of y'all probably know about Entertainers live streams, but for those of y'all that don't, the link is in the information, the description in this video here. You can click that. Go subscribe to Tainer, man. He one of the best at this. And when it comes to play-by-play, if you can't get by your TV, sometimes I mute the TV and I just listen to y'all, man, because like those moments, you're not gonna see like Troy Aikman lose it on stream, but you might see Entertainer like throwing a beer or something, like getting crazy with it. All right, so I took care of all the super chats. Shout out to all of y'all in the chat, man. Big shout out to the fam. I'm seeing some old faces, some new faces, man. Big salute to all of y'all, man. It's been a real productive week over here at Awthentik and the Beard. Dropped a video on Sunday morning, and I got another one in the vault I'm going to be dropping. We got Entertainer up here on a Monday night talking football, and so far my power hasn't went out yet, so maybe that tornado's not really hitting yet, so I'm all good over here, man. Let's get off into this next one. I think this next one is going to be, this one we've been agreeing a lot on some stuff here, and I think this next one's going to be a really good topic. I think you know where I'm going with this one. All right, so I've been seeing Entertainer talking a lot of top 10 on Twitter. Now, he told us, he prefaced it, he's just, trying to be, he's a positive fan on Twitter and all that. I respect that. This question comes up so much on Twitter. I have people who have been arguing and debating this with me since last year for sure. Is Daniel Jones a top 10 quarterback? You see how I had to put the right now on there for my man Entertainer, because we had this conversation on Twitter a little bit, and I really didn't want to let the cat out the bag on this conversation. Now, I want to go over what I think is my top 10 right now as well and let y'all know if I got Daniel Jones in it, and then we'll see what Entertainer's talking here. So, for me, in no particular order, but kind of in order, I got Mahomes. I got Josh Allen. I got Josh Allen above Joe Burrow, by the way. I got Joe Burrow number 3.
I agree with that.
Salute to Tainer one time on that. I got Joe Burrow number 3.
You know I'm a huge Josh Allen guy. So
yeah, when I was saying like Daniel Jones is going to be better than Josh Allen, you were like, nah, Josh Allen's he about to be the GOAT. He about to be the guy. So, and you were early on it when Josh Allen wasn't in a lot of people's top 10s. I remember Dak was like that 10th quarterback, and you were like, Josh Allen is better than Dak Prescott. You were right on that. I got Hurts at number 4. I got Lamar at number 5. I got Aaron Rodgers at number 6. I got Justin Herbert at number 7, above Trevor Lawrence at number 8. I got Matthew Stafford at number 9. Now, this is where things get dicey, but for me, my number 10 right now is Jared Goff. I think Kirk Cousins is a close.
That's a very fair top 10. Very
fair, right? Now, this is what I wanted to present to you before I toss this over to you, right? There are so many quarterbacks that fall into that same category as Daniel Jones for this like 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th spot, right? That you would almost have to put him over all of these other quarterbacks, which would be Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, Tua, Kyler Murray, Derek Carr. It's a lot. And you could also consider like Ryan Tannehill, Russell Wilson, and Deshaun Watson as well. So for me, I will say that Daniel Jones right now is not a top 10 quarterback, because I can't just go off his 1 year. Same thing for Geno Smith, who had a great 1 year. I can't put him in the top 10 off just one great year.
Here's my answer. You want my non-Twitter answer? Here's my answer. First off, the top 8 to me is, I don't know if I agree with the exact order, but I think the top 8 is pretty clear to me. I think those are the top 8, and it's just a matter of what order that you put them in. The 8 that you said. I think after that, you can make a debate, not just for Daniel Jones, but like the next 7 or 8 guys. And there's different ways that you could construct your argument. You could say, well, Matt Stafford's won a Super Bowl. He was hurt last year. He could bounce back. Dak Prescott, look at the stats this guy's put up throughout the course of his career. Tua is going to have a really good statistical year. Look at his weapons. Like, you can make arguments for several of these guys. You can make an argument for Daniel Jones, which I will try to do. But here's what I'm going to say. I don't care if he's labeled a top 10 quarterback. I know. I know we can win with Daniel Jones.
Facts.
And for the New York Giants, he is a top 10 quarterback. That is what I will say. For
That's
the
a
New
pretty
York
PC
Giants,
answer. I like
because
that.
Here's what I'm going to tell you, Awthentik. If you put Tua on this team this year, Daniel Jones is a better quarterback for the New York Giants. Daniel Jones played in this scheme last year. He's more familiar with the offense. You put Matt Stafford.
You mean like if you put Tua in his first year
right
this
now
year.
On the New Daniel Jones knows the offense. They know his work ethic from within the building. And I know we can win with Daniel Jones. And I know Daniel Jones has the talent to be a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah.
And I know with this coaching staff and his work ethic, as the situation around him continues to improve, I know Daniel Jones is going to get a lot more respect throughout the league. So there's my answer. You want to call him the 13th best quarterback? You want to call him the 15th best quarterback? You want to be a guy that just goes by fantasy stats, looks at the passing touchdowns, and doesn't take anything into account, and call him the 19th best quarterback? Go right ahead. But
Now,
by
I
year's end,
do think you have to consider it for all quarterbacks the same way we would consider it in that kind of hypothetical situation you just put there. We have to do that for all the other quarterbacks as well. You know, with the deficiencies that are around them, right? And I just feel like with Daniel Jones, there is a bonus there that comes from Brian Daboll, right? We saw him when the coaching is unstable. When you look at guys like Justin Herbert, when the coaching is unstable, he's still managing to be able to do what he does. I know the weapons over there with the Chargers are a bit different, but you can't leave out the fact that Keenan Allen missed damn near the first 2 months of the season last year. Mike Williams missed about 5 games last year. And that offense, when you look at the way Jason Garrett operated here in New York, that's what Justin Herbert was working with last year with Joe Lombardi, who brought his system over from the Saints, which was literally just a comeback short pass system, which to me does not pair well with Justin Herbert. But no one's going to give that excuse to Justin Herbert and say your coaching stinks. That's why you had only 24 or 25 touchdowns this year. Same thing with Tua, right? We could look at it in an opposite factor. Tua's got a top 3 weapon wide receiver situation over there.
Like, it's that good.
I think people are sleeping on A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. And I saw Warren Sharp had them at number 1.
Them, the Bengals, and the Eagles are the top 3, I think. And the Vikings.
Yeah. And the Vikings, especially with the rookie they drafted. If Jordan Addison could pan out, that could be real nice. I like what the Ravens did at the wide receiver position. Now, when we talk about not having those things around you, nobody does that for Lamar Jackson, who he's had terrible weapons around him for a long time outside of Mark Andrews. People think that J.K. Dobbins is some, like, great running back, but I think a lot of that is a product of Lamar Jackson, the same way that we saw Jordan Howard come in for the Philadelphia Eagles last year and earn a little bit of money running with Jalen Hurts. The previous season. So for me, I know a lot of people don't care about the top 10, but I do think it's a great barbershop type of conversation.
Here's what I'm going to say. By year's end, I think here's what I'm going to declare. If he stays healthy, by year's end, Daniel, like, nobody will call anybody crazy if they say that Daniel Jones is a top 10 quarterback by year's end. That's my prediction. Some people may still say, he's 12th or 13th.
Yeah.
Some people may say he's 6th or 7th. But by year's end, nobody, like when you say, I don't know, throw a name out there right now. If you say Dak Prescott, I think you're crazy if you think he's a top 10 personally, because I think Dak Prescott's on his way down. So maybe he's not
right outside of it, I think.
Trevor Lawrence. I think he's clearly in the top 8, and I'm not comparing Daniel Jones to Trevor Lawrence. But right now, if you say Trevor Lawrence is a top 10 quarterback, nobody calls you crazy.
I think that's interesting. I think that the reason why that happens is because of Trevor Lawrence's play style. Let's not forget, this dude dealt with the worst head coach maybe in NFL history just 2 seasons ago. They had the number 1 pick. They came back this year, invested a ton of money in wide receivers. They had 3 pass catchers who went over 500 yards that were all free agents and were on another team the previous year before. That had never been done ever before.
Trevor Lawrence is going to be great.
Trevor Lawrence is going to be great. But my point to bring this all up is, is 1 year just enough to be like, this guy's automatically a top 8? No. Like, no problem. And like you said, everyone puts him in that top 8 at least. And I think we might be, like, jumping the gun a little bit on him. Like, he's got to come out here and do it again.
If you told me he has a little bit of a regression this year, I wouldn't be shocked.
Calvin Ridley over there, though. Whew,
but I'm going to give you, everybody wants stats. I'm going to ask you this, because again, off of 17 games, because that's the only way you could do stat prediction. So if he plays 14 games, his stats are going to look different. This is what I think Daniel Jones is going to do this year. And you tell me if you think there's a top 10 quarterback. 4,000 passing yards. I think he's going to do it. Last year, he would have had 3,400 to 3,500 if he played 17 games. He sat out the last regular season game. Yeah. I think it's reasonable to say he could have 500 or 600 more passing yards this year, second year in the offense. I don't think that's crazy at all, because I think they're going to throw more, and I think they're going to have more big plays. So 4,000 passing yards. 550 to 600 rushing yards. I don't think that's crazy to think he could do that. Okay? So right now we're at about 4,500.
I'd be more around 400.
Let's say 500.
Say 500.
Fair compromise, 500? Is that fair? I mean, the guy
how many rushing touchdowns you going to have?
He would have close to 800 last year if he played the 17th game. So I'll go back to 500. So you got 4,000 passing, 500 rushing.
Yeah.
26 passing touchdowns. I think that's fair, personally. I think he could very well do that. I think he could do more than that. But I'll say 26 passing touchdowns.
That's fair.
9 interceptions. I'll even say 10 interceptions. 5 rushing touchdowns. If he puts up those numbers this year, is he a top 10 quarterback? Because I think he can do. I think.
Yeah, I mean, you
I
got to
think
look at
he can do
Jalen
better
Hurts
than
was
that,
a
by the
top
way.
2 quarterback this past year. He didn't put up 4,000 yards. He didn't put up over 25 touchdowns.
So I think
So it's got to look a certain way too, because I do think that the stats mean something, right? But if you're like losing games and shit like that, we're not going to put you in the top 10 getting yards in garbage time, right?
Yeah, of course.
But 4,000 yards for Daniel Jones
everything's
would be an
relative.
amazing accomplishment. I think he's on his way to that. I'd probably, if I had to make a prediction, because now I've been like pumping the brakes a little bit on these predictions. Last year I'd said Daniel Jones 4,000 yards, like 31 touchdowns. That didn't work out. I also thought that Kadarius Toney was going to be our leading wide receiver. That didn't work out. So I've been taming my predictions a little bit so that like when they do get breached, I can feel like, oh, I was kind of on the right track there, and I don't look like, just a straight homer fan pretty much. But, I mean, those numbers sound like a top 10 quarterback, but I do think you have to look around the league and see which quarterback's going to bounce back. Is Deshaun Watson going to re-enter that top 10 conversation? We really don't know. Is Russell Wilson going to re-enter that top 10 conversation?
Good.
Derek Carr with the Saints. There's a ton of weapons over there. They got Olave. They have Rashid Shaheed out there with speed. They got Michael Thomas. They went out there and they got the running back from Detroit, and they got Alvin Kamara. The running back from Detroit, I forget his name, Jamal Williams, I believe, who led the league in rushing touchdowns last year. So the offense, to me, is ready to go. More ready to go than ours is. Defensively, they got a couple of pieces over there. They re-signed Jordan. They got a few people in the secondary, Honey Badger, a few others. I think Saints are going to be one of the bigger surprise teams this year. So Carr could be a guy to re-enter that conversation in the top 10. What if Jared Goff is not done yet? What if Jared Goff takes another leap? That's a guy who was pushing 30 touchdowns last year, I believe, 4,000 yards, with Jack at wide receiver outside of St. Brown last year. They had Josh Reynolds.
Here's what I'm going to say. If all these things happen and Daniel Jones does what I just said and they win 9 games and make the playoffs, I'll be very happy.
Oh, of course we're going to be happy.
Yeah, if he ends up being
that's a
the
no-brainer.
best quarterback based off that.
Listen, Daniel Jones could go out there and put up 15 touchdowns again and be under 4,000 yards, and if we win 9 games, I don't care.
That's all I care
about.
about.
This is what I care about with Daniel Jones. What'll scare fans. If they put this all around him and it looks like shit, there's going to be some problems going into next year.
It's not going to.
Yeah, I live by a philosophy of what can go wrong will go wrong. You know what I mean?
It may not look incredible, but it's going to look better. It's going to look better than last year.
I'm expecting it to look better, but I like to look into the future a little bit and think about that. If Daniel Jones comes out here and let's just say puts up like 18 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, people are going to be starting to scratch their head like, hold up. And I think rightfully so, because we've paid him like a starting quarterback, not like a bridge quarterback. We paid him like a starter in this league, right? Yeah. So he's got to go out here and he's got to show up and he's got to prove it. What's awesome about it, I think, is there's not a lot of pressure on him because he got paid. Last year there was more pressure on him to perform well, because if you didn't perform well last year, you weren't going to be a Giant. Whether he cared about that or not, I don't know.
Yeah, there's pressure on him though. The pressure is going to come.
Oh yeah, there's some pressure.
Yeah,
there's some pressure.
There's pressure on him. And he's going to have his ebbs and flows. We talked about it before we went live. I mean, you're going up against the Eagles, one of the best defenses, the Niners, one of the best defenses, the Bills, the Jets. You're going up against a very good defense.
The schedule is a...
So you can't expect him to go out there and throw 3 touchdowns every game. He's going to play from within the game plan. But I think he'll have some weeks where he has some bigger stats than others. But I think he's going to play smart. He's not going to turn the ball over at a high rate. He's going to play from within the game plan, and week to week, much like he did last year, he's going to give this team the best chance to win. I fully believe, and I said this on Twitter to you, and it's my honest opinion, Daniel Jones could have had much better stats last year. Could have had much better fantasy stats last year, but the Giants wouldn't have won. And that's not because of Daniel Jones. It's because of the makeup of the team. Dable looked at the team last year and said, yeah, sure, I could do exactly what Shermer did Daniel Jones' rookie year, and I could have him go out there and throw the ball, which I didn't necessarily disagree with his rookie year, because his rookie year, you're not going to win very many games anyway. Have him learn, go out there, throw the ball, make some mistakes. But last year, the goal is to win games.
I think they need to implement some of that from that Pat Shermer scheme, the whole flood concept, having them roll out right a little bit. And they do it a little bit, but I would like to see more of it. The problem with Daniel Jones with the rookie year, though, was when you allowed him to drop back and pass like that, the fumbles became an issue and the turnovers
I don't think that'll be near.
I don't think that's...
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. But
the coaches won't put him in that position ever again, I don't think. If you look at the rookie season, he had games where he threw the ball 40 times. All his big games, he threw the ball 40 times. The Detroit game, the Jets game, and the Washington game, where he had 5 touchdowns. He's thrown the ball 40 times, which that's not the recipe for Daniel Jones. To me, Daniel Jones is a game manager with legs who can make those bigger plays. Because most game managers, they just go out there, Jacoby Brissett, right? They just go out there, they try to take care of the ball, try to make the right throws. But the added bonus, what the reason why I think Daniel Jones is an above average quarterback right now is because when you factor in that running ability, there's not many quarterbacks that can do that.
I think he's capable of making big plays in the passing game too, more than people give him credit for. I think he needs some help around him. And I think he's starting to get it. But I think last year, Dable looked at the offense and he said, we've got a rookie right tackle. We've got a quarterback in the first year of a scheme. We've got no weapons to speak of in the passing game. And we've got a defense with tons of injuries. We can't afford to make any mistakes.
Do you think they looked at it like that entering the year as well, though? You know, when we had a little bit of expectations for Kadarius and with Galladay?
Yeah, because they knew what they had with Kadarius. Kadarius didn't play a single game. They saw what he was in camp. He didn't show up. So I think they knew that he was going to be out of the game plan at the start of the year. You saw that they came out with a run-heavy approach with Barkley, and they knew the makeup of the team. Yeah. They could have easily came out with a Shermer mindset, and Jones could have thrown 27, 28 touchdowns, thrown 12 picks, in my opinion.
I don't know about easily. I
believe that. But
this offensive line,
we wouldn't have won games because there would have been more turnovers because of the offensive line.
We saw that when he had to throw the ball against the Detroit Lions. We saw that.
Yeah, so I think
it statistically was one of his better passing games as far as yardage goes, but it was his worst game of the year.
Yeah, because we didn't have a team equipped to throw that much. If you had what the Lions have, like the best offensive line in the sport, yeah, I feel comfortable letting Daniel Jones sling it 30 to 35 times a week on average.
I still wouldn't.
I would.
But, you know, the difference, I think, of why this team last year couldn't do what they did in Daniel Jones' rookie years because the wide receiver talent was not as good. In 2019, we had better talent at the wide receiver position.
Definitely not as good. But I personally don't look at his stats as a negative. I look at it like he maximized the game plan week to week. The team knew the deficiencies of this roster. They knew the best chance for them to win was to have long sustained drives, not turn the football over, play smart, and win close games at the end. That was their only chance to win last year in a lot of these games. So do
you think that any of that was because of what they thought they had at quarterback, declining the fifth-year option?
No, I don't think it's but here's my answer and why I say no. They gave the guy $40 million a year. I think
now in hindsight, yeah. I'm talking about entering the fourth year, sorry.
That's really the way they operated, though, all year from start to finish, outside of the end when they played the Vikings, because, like you said, a horrible pass defense. When they felt like they could take advantage of some of the really bad defenses, sure. But with the overall deficiencies on their roster, a lot of people said it was Jones. I don't think it was Jones. I think it was almost everything but Jones. And the fact that
I thought that they were a bit cautious first 6 weeks. Even the first two games, the way that they were cautious, and I don't know if you remember when Brian Dable went over to the sideline, damn near chewed Daniel Jones out completely in front of the team. To me, that was a shift for Daniel Jones. Accountability, where I felt like before that, the coaching staff didn't quite have the faith in him as if he could be that guy. And I think they learned that throughout the season. I don't think they knew that coming in because I think if they knew that, they would have gave him the 50 option. I also think
they realized they had a quarterback in the first year in an offense. So
I think they knew that. Yeah, they knew that coming in.
So that takes time for him to get accustomed to the playbook. But I think they clearly have confidence in Daniel Jones.
For sure right now.
The situation was not set up for them to go out there and throw the ball 40 times and win football games.
Yeah, I don't think that situation is for any quarterback, to be honest. I don't want to see my quarterback throwing it 35 times.
Yeah, ideally you want a balanced offense. Ideally.
Yeah. And even looking at I was looking at some of the later games with Russell Wilson at the end of the year when he started to kind of get it together. He had games where he put up 255 yards on 13 completions. He'd be 13 of 19 for 255 yards. I'm like, how the hell are you putting up this much yardage? And that's the kind of play style that I would like to see from Daniel Jones, where it's efficient. We don't have to throw at 35 for Daniel to get over 200. I think he could go out there and throw the ball 22 times, 23 times, and still be able to put up good passing numbers this year.
I agree. Because I think
last year I don't think that was the case.
Because he's going to average more yards per pass because they're going to throw the ball down the field more frequently. So I agree. I could see
when you talk about statistics too, like labeling some things like fantasy statistics. To me, one of the main ones is the yards per attempt. I don't care if we're not throwing the ball down the field. That part doesn't bother me. I love the big plays and all that shit. That shit is cool, right? But if you're methodically moving down the field and then when you do get in the red zone, you can score touchdowns, I'm okay with that. But the one thing I need to see them maximize this year is the amount of red zone attempts. If you don't have a lot of red zone attempts, it's a must that you're efficient in the red zone, and the Giants did a good job of that last year. Yeah. I love the way that Mike Kafka and Brian Dable scheme this offense up because they do make things a little bit easy for Daniel Jones. But where I feel like the personnel did not allow them to do that last year was in the middle of the field. Everything in the flats and on the outside for Daniel Jones seemed to be easier. The middle of the field seemed to give him some trouble. I'm thinking of the interception against the Minnesota Vikings where in the regular season matchup where Daniel Jones, he had 10 completions in a row. To me, throwing the ball, it was the best he had looked all year. And then he got a little pass happy and he threw that interception going across the middle to Isaiah Hodgins. But I'm more than confident that Daniel Jones can go out here and get the job done. It's always been consistency for me is the number one thing that we need to find out this year, that he has the weapons around him. I bring up the stat all the time. Not one stretch last year of back-to-back games where he had multiple touchdowns in back-to-back games. To me, as a starter in the NFL, I stat watch, but I don't use statistics to come to a determination of what I think about a player. But that is one thing that I think has to change. I know Brock Purdy is in a completely different situation, but that guy came in for 7 straight games and had multiple passing touchdowns as a last pick as Mr. Irrelevant in the draft. I'd like to see Daniel Jones this year, even dating back to his career, all the years. Go back to the rookie year. The problem was consistency. 13 touchdowns in 3 games. He put up huge games against the Jets, Detroit Lions, and against the Washington Commanders with the 5-touchdown game, and he ran for some in those games. Looked great. But throughout that whole entire year, the problem was consistency. And back then, it was taking care of the ball and things like that. In 2021 and 2022, it was the same thing. It's like you get a game from Daniel Jones out of nowhere, like the Carolina game, like the Detroit game. And I would like to just see a consistent quarterback that we know we can rely on game in and game out this coming season. And I think he's got the weapons around him.
I think before last year, that was a fair argument. I think last year he was consistent. He just wasn't elite. But yeah. I think his situation didn't allow him to be elite. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying he's going to be elite, but I think he's going to be much better this year, statistically, from a production standpoint. That's my honest opinion. I think he has last year. He was very consistent. But this year, you're going to see more production because I think they're going to try to throw the ball more.
Yeah, I do see this team trying to throw the ball more, and I think that's the thing for the Giants here. Like, and also taking his running skill set and his passing skill set and marrying them. That I want to see that this year. I felt like there were games that they just relied on him to run the ball. Chicago Bears game where he had 2 touchdowns. The Colts game, he had a couple of boots where he scored on 2 touchdowns running the ball. So he got half his touchdowns on the ground in 2 games. I'd like to see that a little bit more married. I think that Daniel Jones, for him to succeed, it's not going to be like the Jalen Hurts type thing where you get one game where the offense puts up 300 yards in the air and another game where they put up 300 on the ground. I think we need to marry that a little bit more. I'd like to see Daniel Jones with games of 60 rushing yards and 200 passing.
We don't have that team. We don't have the Eagles. We don't have the Niners that you talked about with Brock Purdy. I guarantee you, if you put Daniel Jones on the 49ers, he'll put up better numbers and he'll look,
I don't know. I don't know, man. The one thing that I think Daniel Jones still needs to work on is being an anticipation thrower. It's where I think guys like Tua have their leaps and bounds ahead of Daniel Jones. If you go look at Tua's tape, I've been looking at Tua's tape all this past month. That dude's, the way that he anticipates throws is incredible. Joe Burrow, I think, is really good at that as well. Knowing what's happening up front at the line and making the play immediately, knowing where you're going to go and making that throw. And I think, obviously, the pass catchers make you more confident in doing that. When you got Jamar Chase out there, when you got Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, man, if I'm in a panic, I'm just going to throw that thing up to them. And Daniel Jones doesn't have the luxury of having that, but maybe we had that this year with a guy like Darren Waller.
Yeah, I'll wait because you get people like DJ. Oh, you're crying. I'm not crying.
Oh, is DJ in the chat right now?
Oh, you're crying. I'm not crying. I'm talking about the facts. It's a lot easier to say, yeah, I'm going to take a shot. Let me take a shot when your team can afford to make mistakes.
Yeah.
When your team can afford to make mistakes. The Giants last year did not have a team that if Daniel Jones made a mistake, they were going to win a football game because the team was that depleted of a roster.
Yeah, that's facts.
As you improve this roster, the Giants will take more shots, and Daniel Jones will be more willing to make mistakes because they'll be able to still win games.
And they've done a good job of building up the roster so far. I'm happy with a lot of the moves that they did here for Daniel Jones. I would have loved to go out there and get a guy like DeAndre Hopkins to be a bona fide number 1 wide receiver because then it's like you got that threat, and then you got Hyatt as a rookie, Slayton, and Darren Waller, Saquon in the backfield. I think we could really do some things. But this unit should improve. I definitely think this unit's going to improve. And it's like I said, I just want to see more consistency out of Daniel Jones. And you made a good point when you said, well, he was pretty consistent last year. I just want the bar to be higher. The consistency bar should raise up a little bit.
No, I expect better production this year. But from a consistency standpoint last year, he played very well.
And I think that's why a lot of people said, he's doing what he's asked to do. He did do that last year with efficiency. He did that.
And what more could you have expected last year? First year in an offense with the weapons that he had with the offensive line he was provided with. So,
Yeah, I definitely feel you on
I
that.
think he maximized the situation.
There's two things I want to see. I want to see when things break down, a more confident quarterback, which I don't think it takes great players around you to be that, right?
I've always said that I think that has been the one of his bigger weaknesses. I said that going into last year. From an improvisation standpoint, I thought he got much better at that last year.
He did.
But I've always said that is one of his bigger weaknesses. When you look around the league at some of the elite quarterbacks, when a play breaks down, they still find a way to make plays. Now, of course, there's variables. He doesn't have the weapons a lot of these quarterbacks have. He doesn't have the trust a lot of these quarterbacks have because of the weapons that he has. But yes, I agree with that. That to me, it was always probably his biggest weakness was his improvisation skills.
Yeah, he's not the best lateral mover, and I've had issues assessing his ability as a mobile quarterback, throughout the years. I've gone through like phases where I'm like, nah, Daniel Jones is not a mobile quarterback. And then last year I'm like, damn, he's looking like a mobile quarterback. And really the only reason why I say things like that is because of the agility, the lateral agility. That's really all it is when things break down, he's not a quick stepper in the pocket. Everything is very long and strided. He's a big kid. He's a tall kid. But I think Brian Dable did a really good job of cleaning things up by just being like, hey, if you don't see it, just take off and run. And Daniel Jones got a lot of yards on the ground by doing that.
Yeah. 100% they instilled that into him. And you saw that in the Vikings game. Like as soon as in the playoff game, as soon as something opened up, he was gone. He ran.
I love that asset about what he's doing with his game right now. And I think they can utilize that even more next year. To be honest, you got these burners on the outside now. If teams are in cover 2 and they put those 2 safeties over the top, and even if teams are in Tampa 2 and you get the middle linebacker flying back down the middle of the field, and Daniel Jones takes off and runs and he gets past the first level, you're looking at chunks of 10, 15 yards from the quarterback position. And we saw those a lot last year, in the games I mentioned, the Chicago game and the Indianapolis Colts game. Daniel Jones would boot and like no one's out there. I just think about that now with these weapons. Those type of plays should look even more open for Daniel Jones. And I just want to see him marry that with his passing a little bit more, keep teams off balance. I think Jalen Hurts is one of the better quarterbacks in the league at doing that. Like, you don't know when he's going to run, pass, the way they run the RPO, no pun intended, but like you really don't know what Jalen Hurts is going to do. And he's such a threat as a runner that if you make any mistakes while covering his wide receivers, he's going to take off and go. And do not allow him to get the one-on-one matchup with A.J. Brown. The ball's going to be up in the air.
Right. Yeah, listen, I just want Daniel Jones to get the situation Hurts has, because then I know he's going to be great. But I think it's a year by year. I think there's going to be a lot of fans because of the money that he got. They're just going to expect him to go out there and be an MVP candidate this year. I do not expect that.
I don't expect that either.
I expect
his play
progress.
style doesn't lend to that.
I expect progress.
Yeah.
Once he gets a roster where he is capable of competing for MVP level, then I think that's at least fair expectations to think he could be a guy that has the potential to do that. But it's going to take another year at least to build this team up where you could expect this to be the explosive offense that you want. That's my opinion. But I definitely expect more production this year, and I definitely expect this to be a much better offense. And
Got you.
I
So if you don't
absolutely think Daniel Jones is fully capable of being a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think most of the younger quarterbacks are capable of that too. It's all about situation, obviously, and the players around you. But some of these guys are just like I know you're not high on Justin Fields. I'm extremely high on Justin Fields.
I don't even want to use the term. I don't even want to use the term that I'm not high on Justin Fields. I just don't know yet with Justin Fields.
Yeah.
I just think people are anointing him before they should. Could he become really good? Absolutely.
Yeah,
but
most definitely.
Like this year, he might be great. But
and he might even be average. Who knows?
But
Because for Fields, it's about cleaning up the turnovers.
Up to this point, I think for people to say that he was 10th in MVP voting last year, I didn't even know that. Like that to me is mind blowing. He had
but here's the thing though. When you look at your definition of how you said most valuable, what player was more valuable to their team? I know they didn't win games. Patrick Mahomes, obviously. Do you think Jalen Hurts is very valuable to that team? Because I know you've said in the past that you
Jalen
think
Hurts is more valuable to the Eagles than but if the Bears would have won 7 or 8 games, I would probably argue Fields.
You will raise him up.
They had the
that's
first
fair.
pick. They had the first pick in the draft.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think he's going to have a similar situation of what happened with Trevor Lawrence, where they had the first pick and then they come back the next year. That roster now is just like they've loaded that roster up defensively and offensively.
Football, the Bears.
Yeah, so. And their division, I think, is taking a hit with Aaron Rodgers leaving the division. The Vikings seem to be kind of not on a downward trajectory, but not on an upward one, I would say. So I do think that they're going to be a team that can compete in that division. I think somewhere around 7 or 8 wins. But it reminds me of something about San Francisco. Me and you have talked in the past, and you talk about San Francisco and the way they've built that roster up over the years, and I think they've done a fantastic job of building that roster. We talked about this today in the Spaces, so I just want to get your quick opinion on this as well. Like, with the way that they addressed the quarterback situation, do you think it would have been more beneficial to them to go out there and go get a veteran rather than trading 3 first-round picks and an extra third to trade up to get Trey Lance and bring him in? Do you think it would have been more beneficial to go get a proven quarterback a la the Rams?
I think the Niners, right now the Lance pick obviously looks like a bust, obviously. But I think the Niners were in the position, unlike the Giants this year, to take that swing because they had the complete roster. So you say to yourself, okay, we have the complete roster. We believe in this guy, which they obviously did. You don't give up that much draft capital if you don't believe in the guy.
Yeah.
They may have miscalculated. I'm not even going to say they miscalculated yet. We have to see, but he's been hurt. But they may have miscalculated, and it happens. You make mistakes in the NFL. But I do think of all the teams in the NFL where a trade like that makes sense to give up heaven and earth to go up and get a quarterback, it made a lot of sense for the Niners because they had arguably the most complete roster in the NFL. So now you go up there, you spend your draft capital to go get your quarterback. They just may have picked the wrong one.
Yeah, and I think they did. The problem for me with their situation and how they handled it, they went and got a project quarterback. I don't like that. They should have went out and tried to find a quarterback who they knew could come in and translate to the NFL game immediately. They got a guy who barely played in college, I think just 1 year, and thought they were going to try to turn him into Josh Allen.
They were thinking about it, and I agree, it's not looking good right now. But I think the way they were looking at it was, we have one of the top 3 play callers in the NFL. We have maybe the best. We talked about best weapons. How do we not mention the Niners? They might have the best weapons in the NFL between Ayuk, between Debo,
when
between
you factor in running back, tight end,
between Kittle. So they looked at it like, we have all of this. We have a great defense, which helps support a quarterback. We've got a great offensive line. Let's go for a high-end ceiling quarterback, which he was. But up to this point, obviously it looks like a foolish pick. But the philosophy and the strategy, where I was very against it for the Giants, for the opposite reason, we are far from a complete roster. If I was a Niners fan, in terms of trading up for a high-end quarterback, I would have been in favor of it. But as of now, it does not look like the right quarterback.
Yeah. And I'm wondering where they're going to go. I don't want to talk about the 49ers too much, but I'm wondering where they're going to go. Are they going to try to just stick it out with Brock Purdy and with Trey Lance on the roster? He does have 2 more years left on the contract before they got to address the 5th-year option. But we'll see. Seems like, there's no surefire way to address the quarterback position. And me and you, we had a lot of conversations in the offseason, you being very pro for Jones to get the contract, and me being like, man, I think we could go out there and get maybe a bridge quarterback who could come in here and be serviceable for a couple of years. But I think these 2 years, it's cool. I like the deal that they did for Daniel Jones. It gives them an out, and they can find out really who he is. Is he the kind of quarterback that's going to be able to put a team on his back and take him to the Super Bowl? Because at the end of the day, it's not going to be a situation like the 49ers where they're going to build a perfect roster around this kid within 2 years. I don't think.
Let's call it how it is. This contract was a prove-it contract without being the franchise tag. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I think it's a 3-year commitment. I think a lot of people are looking at this deal and looking at it as a 2-year commitment. I think it's a 3-year commitment because after the second year, it's an $18 million dead hit, and he has easy-to-reach incentives, which is going to up that dead cap hit. If he reaches top 15 this year, for example, that's $1 million that's going to go towards that dead cap hit. If he reaches top 10, and I don't know what the variables are to do that. So there's a very high probability that dead cap hit's going to be $22, $23, $24 million a year. So, and if he reaches some of those incentives, he's probably seeing the 3rd year. That doesn't prohibit you from drafting a quarterback after the 2nd year, but I think he's probably seeing 3 more years as a Giant, if I had to guess, unless he completely bombs. But I don't see that happening.
Right.
I think
it's a good point you made, too, about after the 2nd year, you could always draft a quarterback and make that transition a lot
If you don't feel he's the guy long-term, he could be the starter the next year going in, and then you could transition into the rookie. But it's a deal where I think it's giving Daniel Jones a fair opportunity. You're showing confidence in him, obviously. Yeah. You committed, I think, what will amount to be 3 years to him as you continue to build up the roster. And if Joe Shane does his job and he drafts well, by next year, I think it's very fair to say if he does his job, Daniel Jones should have enough around him where you should know whether or not he is the franchise quarterback. Yeah. Whether or not
you don't think we'll get to that this year?
I think he's going to show progression this year, and maybe we will get to that this year. But I think by next year, there will be even more help around him. This team will be even more built, And that we're going to see the next year anyway. So he's not getting cut after this year. So
for sure.
He's getting a minimum 2 more years, and he's going to be the starter next year. So I think that's the plan for Shane is this year we're going to see some improvements. Let's see how he does when we get a nice little stopgap piece with a guy like Waller. Let's hope our Hyatt guy progresses as the year goes along. Let's draft ourselves or trade for another high-end wide receiver next year. And then next year we'll see if we're going to give him that Jalen Hurts contract, which is essentially like a 9-year commitment with all the way they backloaded that. But that, to me, is that franchise quarterback. This was, we're not going to tag him because then we're not going to be able to sign the Bobby Okereke. We're not going to be able to fill in this roster. Let's sign him to an extension where it gives him some flexibility. If he plays really well this year, we could then backload a little bit of that money because we'll have a little bit more confidence in him long term. Instead of it being a $42 million hit, let's lower it to 30 so we could continue to build up this roster. If he plays well this year and we have more faith in him, if he doesn't play as well, let him play out on the $42 million, see what he does, and we'll go from there. So it gives themselves a lot of options, but that's what this contract is. It's a 2 or 3 year experiment as they build up the roster. And as long as Shane does his job, there could be a good result either way. Because if Daniel Jones is not the guy, but you have a Super Bowl ready roster in 2 or 3 years if Joe Shane does his job, and it could happen real quick in the NFL. If you draft properly, go out and get your quarterback. Trade for the veteran. Sign
the amount of units that we have that need to be addressed is the one thing about 2 years being a Super Bowl contender or contender.
If Joe Shane drafts well, 100%, this could be a Super Bowl contender in 2 years. 100%. If he drafts well, it could be a Super Bowl roster. Why couldn't it be? If Evan Neal evolves to what he should, the guy was the 7th overall pick. Like Bobby said, in 2 years, you're hoping if it's not the best tackle duo, it's one of the top 5, one of the better tackle duos in the NFL.
That has to happen for us.
If John Michael Schmitz develops to be an average to slightly above average center, which you have to think he should be, usually when you draft the center in the second round, which is essentially a first round for a center, they never go in the first round. You're expecting him to be at least an average NFL starting center. So if that happens in 2 years, suddenly you have a well above average offensive line. You have to think he got better young weapons. Guys like Hyatt have matured and grown. Guys like Wan'Dale Robinson have matured and grown. Guys like Kayvon Thibodeau have matured and grown. So these players that he's drafted.
I'm worried about Wan'Dale. I ain't gonna lie. I'm worried about
injury
Wan'Dale.
prone for sure. But
I'm worried about
but my point is, if he does his job, there's no reason to think by 2025. I'm talking 2 more years of drafts that we can't have a Super Bowl roster.
Yeah, entering that year.
And
I'm not going to expect it right now just because, I feel like a lot of the pieces that came in I'm worried about them. This really reminds me of the beginning of 2020, I believe that was. Let me see, or 2021, sorry, when we drafted Tony.
Yeah.
That was 2021, right?
Yes, 2021.
Right. And we had Kadarius Toney, John Ross, Kenny Galladay, all these guys who were all injury prone, went out there and spent money on Kyle Rudolph, John Ross, a few others, right? I feel good and better about this roster entering the year, but that's my worry. A couple of guys get hurt, we're right back to where we started.
I think differently than you, but I respect your opinion. For this year, of course, if guys get hurt, we could be in big trouble. But long term, I think it's a very different situation because now you have Andrew Thomas.
Definitely not long term. Don't get me twisted on that.
But that's when I say 2 years. I'm not talking about this year.
I'm just saying in general though. Like for this season, I'm hype about it, right? But it won't surprise me if our legs get cut from underneath of us a little bit if Darren Waller goes down with an injury.
Of course, if we have injuries, that's the NFL, man. A lot of the NFL is luck. It's staying healthy. It's catching teams when they're not healthy.
Yeah, but with these particular players I'm talking about. And this is questioning a little bit about what Joe Shane has done so far. Like you went out there and you got a lot of injury-prone players on this roster.
He did, but that's what you're going to get when you have short-term commitments.
Facts.
When you sign a guy to there's a reason you got Paris Campbell for a 1-year deal. If Paris Campbell never had an injury history, he would have gotten a 3-year deal. He's a good wide receiver.
He is. He is.
So I think Shane did that intentionally. I think he said, I don't want long-term commitments. I want to use these guys as stopgaps, hold me overs as I continue to get guys like Jalen Hyatt, and they mature and they grow. So I think that was done intentionally because the wide receiver market wasn't very good. Matter of fact, it was awful. It was awful.
The wide receiver market was bad this year.
There wasn't wide receivers worth signing big contracts to. So I think that was by design. The Waller thing, it's a little risky, but you didn't give up much. You gave up a 3rd-round pick, which you got in the Kadarius Toney trade. So I think it's fine. If he gets hurt, I mean, that sucks, but I think it was a good trade.
Yeah, I like the Waller. And Daniel Jones needs something like that. We know through the Dave Gettleman whole era, it was like they lacked putting wide receiver talent around him. They waited forever. They drafted Slayton in that 5th round in 2019, and then you just waited to draft wide receivers until we got Kadarius Toney. It just didn't make sense. But I got a couple of super chats here, and somebody want to ask a question here. Shout out to the homie Irish Rover one time in the building, man. He's been rocking with us for a few here. He says, Authentic Chris, do you think DJ has improved in reading through his progressions? The reason I asked is with the wide receiver room we have this season, I think that skill is critical. I am hopeful the O-line gives DJ time as well. But the original question here is being, do you think DJ has improved in reading through his progressions?
Yes. I'm not saying he's great yet, but yes, I think he's improved. And I think, and the one area for me that really stood out above all else last year for Daniel Jones in terms of that was an obvious improvement for me was his pocket awareness. His ability to sense the pressure in the pocket, step up, feel the pocket. You saw that on the touchdown to what's his name, Hodgins. I think it was against the Lions or the Vikings. I can't remember. It was a regular season game
in the red zone, right?
In the red zone.
Yeah.
He did that a couple of times down the stretch where you could really see Daniel Jones for 2020 doesn't do that. So
not at all.
He definitely got much better in terms of his feeling from within the pocket, which is a huge part of it. In terms of his ability to scan the field, I think that will improve dramatically this year because of his familiarity from within the offense here too. I think you're going to see a big improvement there. But his pocket awareness last year definitely was very noticeable for me in terms of an uptick.
I'm right there with you. Pocket awareness definitely got better. I think that his processing got better too, but when you compare it to what other NFL quarterbacks are doing, he's still got a long way to go before he gets there. You don't see Daniel Jones do a lot of pivoting in the pocket where he's going first read, second read, third read, and you see the feet move. And I think for him, it's a mechanic thing a little bit. Like, his feet just aren't fast. Like, he's got slow feet. And I think that's kind of why he, locks in on wide receivers. His shoulder gets going one direction, and his whole – everything is just going to go towards that side of the field rather than when I'm looking at some Tua tape here. I see Tua, it's like 1, 2, 2, 2, balls out. But the problem here with Tua is obviously he can't stay healthy. He's a small body. But I think Daniel Jones this year will probably see a lot more opportunity to do that. But it's dependent on what you've been saying. That offensive line's got to be able to give him the time. And he's got to have confidence.
Too. Yeah, like for you to be able to scan to your third read, you have to have confidence that your line's doing their job.
Yeah, it's facts. In the NFL, some of these guys, they're so fast. Like Joe Burrow, just looking at some of his tape, he's so fast at getting to the second read, third read is really ridiculous. And I credit it to the footwork. Jalen Hurts even has done it some, but we know about the offensive line that Jalen Hurts has there. He was one of the better pocket passers of the past year. But the offensive line allows him to pretty much do whatever he wants back there.
Dude,
so
come on,
it's hedging on his O-line.
When they played the Giants this year, he was reading books back there.
Yeah, it's terrible. And I hate it when our defense is like that, when we can't get to the quarterback. That's not Giants football.
Yeah.
All right, let me make sure we don't got another one here, and then I got one more question. Then we'll get off into some questions from the chat. Definitely appreciate all of y'all hanging around here. Shout out to Chef Oz, AAHZ. He says Jalen Hyatt is going to be the new celebrity of NYC. Mark my words. He says 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns. I love him. This reminds me of the young generation when they say this at the end of a statement. He said 15 touchdowns easily. That might be crazy, but
I love Chef. I love Chef. He bets on the tight end before every game, and I think last year it was Bellinger. He always bets the tight end's going to catch the first touchdown of the game. And in 2 or 3 years, he's been a subscriber on my channel. I don't think he's hit the bet yet. But hopefully
if he put that bet on the Super Bowl, he might have made some bread.
But this year with Waller, the odds won't be as good. But he'll hit on some of those this year. But I think you're smoking crack. I mean that's what I think. If you think Jalen Hyatt is going for 1,215 touchdown, I love you, Chef.
Easily,
but my man, calm down.
Shout out to Chef one time in the building. And shout out to another chef. My homie El Jefe one time is in the building, man. He says, cheers, boys. Sent in a $4.99 super chat, man. Definitely appreciate that, man. It goes a long way over here on this channel, man. Y'all know we're trying to grow this thing over here at Awthentik and The Beard. Let me just make sure I'm all caught up here. Oh, Keith Wilson. Shout out to Keith Wilson Jr. He's been here for a few streams as well. He says, salute. Where are y'all on Aziz? I'm always frustrated with him. Gets injured doing high knees and warm-ups. Him and KT could be dangerous. That's hilarious. Now, Carl Banks came out and said that Azeez Ojulari is going to have how many sacks if healthy?
15 for 51. That's what he said.
You know, Carl Banks is my guy. He sent me one of the most dopest New York Giants, varsity jackets, known to man. I promise y'all, don't nobody got a doper jacket than me. Shout out to Carl Banks one time. But that 15 might be a little, even though Aziz gets to the quarterback, he definitely gets to the quarterback. I think 15 might be a little bit too high.
I mean, if the guy stays healthy, I think he's going to have a big year. I'm not going to say 15, but can he get double digits? Absolutely. I think he'll get double digits if he plays all 17 games, especially opposite Kayvon Thibodeau. But I mean, last year, he had like 5 in like 6 games or something, right? Said 6 or 7 games he played. His rookie year, he had 8.5. So I definitely
remember
think
his stat was like, no, I think it was like, it was cut in half, I remember. I thought it was like 10 in like 18 games or something like that. I can't remember the exact stat.
Yeah, if you said, Chris, if he plays all 17 games this year, do you think he'll get 10? Yeah, I do. But I don't, 15 to me is a little, that's setting the bar real high. You hit 15, you're the sack leader, or you're among the sack leaders. The record
is what, 22 and a half?
22 and a half, Michael Strahan.
Yes, sir.
But
should have did some trivia tonight.
Yeah, but you pair him with Kayvon on the other side. I think both those guys are going to do damage this year. I mean, I'll say this: I expect at least 18 combined sacks from those two guys if they don't get hurt. At least 18 combined sacks.
Yeah, Kayvon, I loved what I saw. The rookie year. I think where Kayvon needs to improve is different moves on the line. He's a good get to the edge outside type of rusher, and he's got some good fake to the edge, get to the inside type of moves.
Yeah,
I want to see some of that Bosa stuff. I want to see you fake to the outside and just go bull rush somebody and go smack at them.
Yeah.
Add that power dimension to your game. And then also when the run is coming towards you on read option and stuff like that, sometimes you see Kayvon Thibodeau getting pushed back by these tackles on the edge, on the outside, and not getting that kind of penetration that I would like to see from him. But for a rookie season, I think we couldn't have asked for more. He missed 3 games, I think it was.
He had 40 pressures, I think, which led all like he had a very good rookie year.
Yeah, and I think with power, you'll start to see him stop doing that flailing thing he does with his arms, looking for a holding penalty, where all fans think, oh, they don't call holding on him. He's flailing, man. He just go out there and play a power type of style of game. I think him and Chase Young both need that. Speaking on Chase Young from the Commanders, they both need that in their game. And I think Bosa has that, and both of those edge rushers don't have it yet. But I think Kayvon Thibodeau has the power to be able to do it because we've seen plays from Kayvon where he'll literally shrug off a blocker and then make the tackle down the field. Or you'll see a hustle play where he runs 40, 50 yards down the field and make the tackle. So I have full confidence in Kayvon to be one of the leaders of this team.
Yeah, and his first step is elite. I mean, his first step, you saw it in college when the Giants drafted him. First thing I said, and of course you heard it from everybody else too, but because it's so obvious when you see it, that's OC.
I remember you talking about that too. Yeah, definitely reminiscent of OC. You're right.
He had that. He's got that OC explosion off the line of scrimmage. I just think he just needs to continue to get better, and he will. I mean, the guy has tons of talent. It's just about getting stronger, honing your game. I think you'll see an even bigger jump from him this year, and I think he's gonna have a huge year. I just don't want to set the expectations way too high. But with Aziz on the other side, they're both going to complement one another, and the improved D-line, I think everything sets up, for Kayvon to have a pretty big year this year.
Yeah, it's a must that Aziz stays healthy this year. We just don't have much depth at that position. Big shout out to Chris Peace one time in the building, man. I got to chop it up with him at the Giants at Commanders game. We had a good time, man. Drank some brews, ate real good. He says, I want more snow angels. I'm with you on
We
that,
all do.
bro.
We all do.
I'm definitely with you on that. Big shout out to Chris Peace one time. All right, so let's get off into this last one. We'll round this thing out, and then we'll go to the chat. It's going to be I hate this StreamYard is doing this with the chat where I can't put them on the screen, but I do got the phone here, so we'll be able to see them, and I can just read them off to you. Let's go ahead and get off into this last one. I think this is such an important question. I kind of know where your answer is going to be, but let's get off into this last one. All right, so this one is, have the Giants closed the gap with the Eagles and the Cowboys in the NFC East? Giants have not won the division since 2011. That's a long, long time. Cowboys are coming off back-to-back 12-win seasons. Talked about that a little earlier. The Giants have not won in Philly since 2013. I'm playing extreme pessimist right now. Dak Prescott, 10-2 versus the Giants' career. And the Eagles have beat the Giants 13 of the last 16 times dating back to 2016.
I hate this. I hate listening to this.
And this one's gonna kill you. They've beaten us 13 of the last 16 times, right? So we have 3 wins in the last 16 matchups. 2 of them came in the Joe Judge era.
Yeah, I was there
I
for
thought
one.
that was terrible.
I was there for one of them.
13-7 win at home where Rager drops the ball. Jalen Hurts had a 3-interception game. And the other one was in November 15th, 2020. We beat them 27-17 at home. Daniel Jones beat Wentz that day, and Daniel Jones had 244 yards through the air, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 9 carries for 64 yards and a touchdown. So it's been a decade of bad football versus the Eagles in particular. Saquon Barkley has never beat the Dallas Cowboys. Lot going on. So do you think we've closed the gap? And if you don't think we've closed the gap, give me an idea of how close you think we might be.
Well, what does the question mean? When you say close the gap, do I think we're as good as them?
No, literally. Have we closed that gap to be able to? How much closer do you think we are to compete?
I mean, by that definition, yes, we're closer. We're closer.
I like that little smirk.
We're still far away from the Eagles. I mean, you look at the Eagles offensive line, and what I will say from a positive standpoint, it's an older offensive line. Ours is a younger, emerging offensive line. So within a few years, it's not crazy to think that the Giants could have a much better offensive line than the Eagles if that offensive line continues. But right now, today, the Eagles have probably the best offensive line in football. Right. And last year, we were ranked like 29th. So, and then D-line, we're comparable now. I do think we have a really good D-line. But the offensive line, they're far superior to us. Their weapons are far superior to us.
Yeah.
Their corners are far superior to us. Again, older. So with the young corners we have, maybe in a few years, there could be a quick transition there. But now, this year, today, much better. Their depth at the linebacking core, much better. So they're just an overall much better roster. Did we get better? Yeah. Did we start to close the gap? I suppose. Do I think we closed the gap on Dallas? Yes. Do I think we're there with Dallas yet? Probably not quite yet, but I think we're splitting with Dallas this year, and I think we're really close to them. I think by next year we'll surpass Dallas.
I love the matchup against Dallas first week. It's just a great time to just catch them slipping a little bit. We talked about this backstage a bit. I would not have liked that game to be at the end of the year, and I don't like that we have those 2 Eagles games at the end of the year because those are when teams really know their identity. Things are clicking. They've been running that system for so long. I don't like the 2 matchups late. But I do think we got a great shot. I'm going to pick the Giants to beat the Cowboys week 1. I think that their rushing attack is going to be a little bit of a question mark, I feel like, with the injury to Tony Pollard, possibly no Ezekiel Elliott, who has destroyed the New York Giants his whole damn tenure. He was a problem for us. And stopping the run last year for us was just a problem in general. So being that the Cowboys won't have that power back to be able to just overpower us, at least from a running back standpoint, maybe from the trenches, I do think that their offensive line took a little bit of a hit this year as well. And I think our defensive line has gotten better. So we should be able to compete.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you what, man. I think their guard, he should probably wait till week 2 to come back. Hold out.
Hold out a little bit.
Hold out till at least week 2. No, but I've talked extensively as to why I think we're going to win that game. I think it broke perfectly for the Giants. And we'll see. I could look like a fool. Like you said, we haven't beaten Dak since his rookie year. So, most people are going to say the Cowboys are going to win. And I obviously understand where they're coming from. I think the way that the schedule broke perfect for the Giants. We're at home for one to start the year, but more importantly, they have a new play caller. Generally speaking, it takes a few weeks to really hit the ground running to get accustomed to a new play caller. So I could see Dallas coming out a little off their game to start that game. We're at home, but the most important factor for me, Awthentik, who's the better coach, Mike McCarthy or Brian Daboll?
I'm gonna plead the fifth on this one.
Yeah. No way. You're not pleading the fifth.
I'm just waiting, man. Look, I remember how it was after that first year with Joe Judge, right? And everybody was like, we got our coach, man. I think we got our coach, but Brian Daboll's got a lot more to prove. The resume for Mike McCarthy is extensive.
Yeah, but he's got Aaron Rodgers. But yes, he has a good resume.
Right now, I'm picking Brian Daboll. You already know that's the squad. I'm picking Brian Daboll.
And we have everybody coming back from our staff. They have turnover, right? They lose their offensive coordinator. Week 1, more so than any other week in the NFL, you have months to prepare. Months. You have 2-3 months to prepare. So which coach has the advantage when you have 2 or 3 months to prepare? It's the New York Giants.
Got that advantage.
Baby.
Oh, yeah.
It's the New York Giants.
The roster is the part. I'm worried about Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is the number 1 wide receiver in this league. That, to me, that's the floor for a wide receiver 1 is Brandon Cooks and what he was doing over there with the Houston Texans with no quarterback, right? So bringing him back in, I expect the Dallas Cowboys offense to look a lot like it did when they had Amari Cooper over there just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb's a better wide receiver now than he was when he was playing with Amari Cooper as well. But like I said, the running game could take a little bit of a hit. Defensively, I'm worried about the Cowboys. We know they can get after the quarterback. We saw it happen last year a ton.
Of course. Listen, if we can't block Tank Lawrence, it's going up in smoke.
Oh, it's going to be a problem.
It's going up in smoke. So I agree. They have to do a much better job than they did last year against Dallas. Are they going to get some hits? Of course. Their D-line's too good. But Daniel Jones can't be pressured 25 times on 27 dropbacks. That can't happen.
Yeah, that can't happen.
So I expect a lot of 12 personnel in that game because of that.
Yeah.
So don't go into that game expecting them to throw for 300 yards and have huge plays all over the field. The goal in that game has to be to make sure that they're able to protect for Daniel Jones and hope to hit a couple of plays here and there and hope to get that ground game established.
Defensively, I mean, we can't have them come out here and just be throwing the ball all over us. That can't happen.
Of course not. Of course not.
And Dak Prescott and that offense have the capability to do that. And I am a little bit worried about these question marks in the secondary right now and how we're going to adapt to this. We talked about it earlier about if Adoree Jackson would be in the slot in a game particular like this one against the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm not confident in guys like Darnay Holmes out there or Cordero Flott. A lot of people were high on Cordero Flott from what they saw last season, but I see a guy who struggles tackling, struggles in coverage. He can make some big plays, longer type of defender. I like his skill set, but I just don't think he's quite there yet. And that the secondary unit is just something that I really got my eyes on. So I'm going to pick us to win because I do think Brian Dable, like you said, he's going to have the one-up in preparation in that game. I just hope that Wink Martindale can do the same. I want this defense to have their identity by the time we get to week 1.
You want negative, Tana? You want my very scared take of the season?
Facts. Let's do it.
I'm scared to death of Wink Martindale this year. Scared to death. Scared to death of Wink Martindale this year.
Yeah. Is it the aggression? Is that what it is?
Yes, because I just went over the offenses we're going up against. I went over the wide receivers we're going up against, and we have a very inexperienced corner group. I'm scared to death of Wink's aggression this year. Last year, I think he got away with it a bit more because we weren't going up against elite offenses and elite weapons. Our corners are going to be put to the test. So if you're telling, I'm a lot more worried about the defense, honestly, than the offense. Because and it might work out great and I do believe strongly in our front seven. But I'm scared to death of Wink Martindale's aggression this year.
I can respect that, man. I definitely can respect that. I like how he's aggressive. And I do think when it calls for it, sometimes he's just not aggressive. We saw it later on in the season where rarely was blitzing after the quarterback. So I like aggressive Wink. I don't like that conservative Wink. We all know with Patrick Graham how it was with that zone defense.
I agree with you. I like a more aggressive natured defensive coordinator. And we know what we're going to get. The guy blitzed over 20% of the time last year with the corners that we had. But I still worry about it.
Yeah. Wink Martindale does a really good job of showing different fronts and quarterbacks not knowing where the pressure is going to come from. That's why I really like Wink. It's not just like, hey, we're just sending people at you. It's very strategic. You might have 2 defenders lined up on the inside. I even saw plays where Kayvon Thibodeau was lined up at tackle, right? Lined up in the A and B gap. And then he'd back out and go into coverage. So I think Wink Martindale is versatile enough to be able to handle it. But I mean, it is a worry with these cornerbacks.
I mean, he definitely had some great game plans and he made some great adjustments. You think about the Packers game, go back and think about that Packers game. Aaron Rodgers was slicing us up. It was so frustrating as a Giants fan watching the first half. Screen pass, wide receiver screen, wide receiver screen, wide receivers, and then they made adjustments at halftime and they completely devoured the Packers in the second half. So Wink definitely, I think he's a great defensive coordinator. I'm just worried about the young, inexperienced secondary going up against the types of weapons we're going up against this year. But hey,
big time.
If that front seven does their job, like I think they could, it'll make up for a whole hell of a lot.
Yeah, and they have to improve in the running game. They really got to. I think back to the Ravens game. Who was that was killing us? He was wearing a team number.
What game?
The Ravens game. He's like a scat running back.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
What's my man's name?
I can't remember his name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Dude had like 2 big runs in that game for like 50 yards. Why can't I remember his name?
Kenyon Drake? Man? Is that who it was? Somebody said
Drake. Kenyon Drake.
Yeah,
Thank you. It was Kenyon Drake. Yeah.
Travis
he diced us in that game. And if they would have committed to that, I think they win that game easily. But instead, they got a little happy, and Lamar Jackson started making some big mistakes in that second half. And Wink's adjustments got us back in that game. So with the aggression, the thing that worries me the most is when you get aggressive, can you still stop that run? We can't allow teams to keep running on us.
Take on the defense.
Mm-hmm.
There's no chance in hell we don't create more turnovers this year. No chance.
I mean,
no.
Last year,
chance.
like the lack of interceptions, and McKinney was out for a couple of weeks too. But damn, I mean, I just want more turnovers, man. The Landon Collins interception was one of the best moments of the year defensively for me.
Yeah, so I think we create more turnovers this year, which is going to help Daniel Jones. It's going to help the offense. You're going to get better field position. You're going to get more possessions, and the special team is going to be better this year. That is going to be our most improved unit this year, and nobody's talking about it.
Special teams last
special teams is boring. I get it. It's the hidden yardage. I don't have special team stats in front of me, but if I had to guess, we were one of the 5 worst special teams units.
What makes you think we're going to be better this year?
Because last year, with all the injuries we had and how bad the overall roster was, you had special teamers starting. And you had backup special teamers playing special teams. Like the special teams unit was completely depleted. Now you have a much more deep roster. I think the special teams will be much better this year. I think that will be a massive improvement for this team. And people don't think about that because it's offense, defense. But I think our special teams will be much better this year, which is important. It's the hidden yardage.
Yeah, special teams is super important, man. All 3 phases of the game. I worry about punt returner, who they're going to try to, utilize at punt returner. I worry about the punter, the Scottish.
Oh God! But I will say part of that is attributed to our punt coverage last year too. Our punt coverage was really bad. Really bad.
Just not good at downing inside the 10 and just he had a big leg though. I will give him that. He definitely had a big leg.
Yeah.
So you do think that we're closing the gap? Let's put it on a number scale here. If 10 is closing the gap all the way and 1 you didn't close the gap at all, where do you think we at?
For each individual team or just total?
Go ahead and do each individual team. Why not?
8 on the Cowboys, closer to 9. Like, I think we're very close to the Cowboys, but a lot of that's going to be dependent on these younger players getting better. On the Eagles, it's like a 4. Like, I think we closed it a little bit.
Yeah.
But we still got a ways to go. But it's a gap that could close fast because, like I said, they have an older team. They have a team where they backload a lot of salaries. So as this team continues to build, if these younger players evolve, eventually those guys are going to get older and the Eagles are going to have to start to retool their roster. So I could see the gap closing very quick, much quicker than people think. But for this year going in, it is still a big gap.
I'm glad the Beard asked because I did want to talk about this a little bit too. And I know you actually have a sweep in the Commanders this year, but what's your thoughts on the Commanders? I mean, do you think that they can hang tough with the other 3 teams in the division, or you think they're guaranteed?
By no means do I think the Commanders are a pushover. And I wouldn't be shocked if we split with Washington. I wouldn't. I'm picking a sweep, but I wouldn't be shocked if we split with them. People forget Washington last year, for about a 6-game stretch, I should say, were one of the best teams in football. Yeah. We were going into that Sunday night game saying to ourselves, Washington looks like a much better team than we do. They beat the Eagles, and it was not a fluke. They ran the ball all over them. They did it the right way.
There was some fluky plays. The Quez Watkins fumble late in the game.
They controlled the line of scrimmage, though.
They committed to that run. Brian Robinson, it was only 3.8 yards per carry in that game. They did force 3 turnovers in that game, though, to keep them in it. And every time you looked up, Jalen Hurts was on the sidelines. That's why I thought the Giants were going to try to copy that game plan. It's the only team that beat Jalen Hurts all year long in the regular season.
I think, I just don't think they felt like we could get the push up front. But yeah, that was the way for a team like the Giants last year to have a chance against the Eagles. What Washington did,
and Washington was dealing with poor offensive line play right around that time.
The Jets, I mean, the Washington, I should say, is very much like the Jets to me last year.
Yeah.
Like the Jets and I think the Jets are a little bit better last year than the Washington will be this year, but similar. Like they have a pretty good overall roster, but their quarterback, I mean, who knows? Maybe he'll be good, but you can't go into the year thinking he's going to be very good. And the offensive line's obviously a big question mark for them, but they have some nice pieces. They have some talent on the defensive end. They've got weapons. I don't think they're going to be easy. I think Sam Howell could be an annoying quarterback. I could see it because he's the type of guy that he just seems like the type of quarterback, since I've been watching the New York Giants, that gives us fits because he's a guy that could beat you with his legs. The Giants historically have always struggled against those types of quarterbacks. So I could see him running for 80, 90 yards on us. Like he's a much more mobile quarterback than people think. The guy at 800
and he's a strong body too. He's a big build.
So I'm not discounting Washington. I think, Beard, if I had to put a record prediction, you're not going to have a good record. But it's
what
not.
You think the record's going to be?
4 or 5 wins because well, here's why though. They're playing in the NFC. Look at the schedule. We talked about how hard the Giants' schedule is. Washington's schedule is equally as hard,
but they start off a lot easier. They got the Cardinals opening day and then the Broncos week 2. But then they got 2 games back to back that they could lose. I think it was the Bengals and the Bills.
Maybe they win 6. But I just think their schedule's too hard, and I do think they're the worst team in this division. But I don't think they're going to be a pushover. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they pick off a win against the Cowboys or the Giants. I don't think they're this
Sam Howell beat the Cowboys last year, last game of the season, with everything on the line for the Cowboys to get the #1 seed. He beat them.
But if you're asking me, I would pick it 5 wins if I had to pick.
I think Washington's going to be more around where we are, maybe like 7 wins to 10 wins to 11 wins, somewhere around there.
Wow, you think
11 would be a little egregious, I think. But like if they won 10 games, I don't think it would surprise me. But I think if they win 10 games, the Giants are going to be in that same bubble, and so are the Cowboys. You know, the Beard last year, he predicted that all the teams in the NFC East would all have winning records. He had every team over 9 wins, so the only one he missed on was Washington. I think with Washington, we went out there to camp on the opening Thursday for their camp, and we got to see Sam Howell in person. The kid can spin the damn football.
I'm gonna be nice to the Beard, and I'm gonna say 6 wins.
Nice at 6.
I'm leaning 5 or 6 for Washington. I'll go 6.
If I had to put some money on it, I'm gonna say 7 wins.
I think it's going to be a competitive 6 wins. I think it's going to be like an encouraging 6 wins. I think you're going to be like, well, if we get a quarterback, this could be a very good football team very fast. Like I think
you don't have faith in the quarterback mainly,
no,
right?
I don't. No, I think he could show spurts where he may be able to win a game or 2 for them. But no, I do not. I don't think Sam Howell's a franchise quarterback.
Now that stretch that you talked about, where for 6 games Washington looked like one of the better teams in the league, they had Taylor Heineke at quarterback.
No, I know.
This kid, Sam Howell, is going to be an upgrade. I told you I saw it in person. He was not missing, but they did say the next day came back down to earth, had a couple little interceptions.
Here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to say, Awthentik. I think we're going to sweep them. So if I think that, right? And obviously I'm saying I wouldn't be shocked if we split, but my prediction is we're going to sweep them. So if I think that, I have to think at most they're going to have 1 win in the division. If I think
you got Cowboys and Eagles are probably
so. Let's
be
be nice and say if I think we're sweeping them, let's say they go 1-5 in the division. Let's say they pick off a game against the Cowboys or the Eagles, which they did last year. They did beat the Eagles.
And they beat the Cowboys. Yeah,
I'm going to say 1-5 in the division. Yeah, maybe 2-4, but I'm going to say 1-5 in the division. I'll give them a win against Chicago. They're home. That's 2. I'm not going to have them beating Buffalo. I'll have them beating Arizona. That's 3.
They'll beat Arizona, yeah. I think they can beat Denver, too.
I don't think they'll beat Denver in Denver. I don't think they'll win that. But they could. But I'm not going to pick them to win that game. I'll give them a win against the Falcons, actually. I'll give them that.
They should easily beat. They beat the Falcons last year with Taylor Heineke.
So that's 4. They're not winning in Seattle. That's one of the toughest places to play.
Yeah, I'm worried about our matchup against Seattle as well. Go ahead.
I'm going to give them 6 wins. I'll give them a win against the Rams because I don't think the Rams are going to be very good. And I'll give them 1 win either against Miami or New England on the road. I'll give them 6 wins.
I can see that you're not too high on Miami this year.
I think Miami's good, but I'm trying to find a game. They're going to have an upset here or there. So they'll win one of those 2 games. They'll either beat New England or they'll beat Miami. I'll give them 6
Cowboys,
wins.
The Commanders play the Cowboys well because it's such a big rivalry. I think they're going to split with the Cowboys. I think they're going to split with us. I think they'll get swept by the Eagles. I don't think they're that far behind us. I wanted to ask you this. What is the reasoning that makes you think that the Washington Commanders are that far behind the New York Giants? Is it mainly quarterback?
That's the biggest thing by far.
Yeah, because I think coaching, if you looked at last year, Scott Turner was one of the worst offensive coordinators in the entire league. His situational football was awful. They were looking to fire him pretty much, but they didn't have anybody else to fill his position to be able to call the plays because Ron Rivera is a defensive-minded head coach, so they had to keep him pretty much. And he was absolute garbage. Bringing in Eric Bieniemy, I think you're going to see a lot more RPO in that offense. Even though Sam Howell's not like a fast quarterback, I still think you're going to see RPO schemes like the ones they ran in Kansas City for Patrick Mahomes. And I think that offense is going to open up. On the day we went to camp, they literally started off from the 40-yard line, and they stretched the field all damn day. Diami Brown, Josh Dotson, and Terry McLaurin.
I hope I'm right, but hey, maybe they'll surprise me. Maybe they will.
I think that their offensive line upgrades are gonna yield better results for the quarterback as well because they brought in Nick Gates. They went out there and they addressed the offensive line a little bit. I don't think they've completely fixed it, but it won't surprise me if their offensive line is better than ours this year. They were in the same bubble as us last year. They were a terrible unit. They switched up the offensive line unit like 8 times during the year. So I just see Washington being a team that's like in the mix, very much like last year. I can remember having a conversation with you last year before we played Washington the first time, and you were just saying like, yo, all we got to do is win one of those games, and we're probably going to make it to the playoffs. And I was in agreement with you on that as well. But it almost felt like Washington collapsed at the end of the year when the Giants were on the up. We decided, hey, here's our window. Let's go take this.
Yeah, well, I think going into that Washington game, we also had a ton of injuries, and things felt like they were starting to spiral out of control. Adoree had gotten hurt. McKinney had gotten hurt.
Yeah, did Adoree not play that first? The first game was in New York.
He might have played the first. I can't remember. But
yeah, McKinney wasn't there, though, I don't think.
It just felt like things were starting to spiral out of control, and we were on a downward trajectory, and they were on an upward trajectory. But that was the defining point in the season. But listen, I think the Giants bringing back the entire coaching staff is a factor as well. As big of an improvement as Bieniemy may be, there's a transition there, especially with a new quarterback.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be wrong. And I don't think they're going to be a pushover, like I said, though. I think both Giant games will be within one score. I don't think we're blowing Washington out. I don't think they're a pushover. I just think we have a much better coach. I don't think I used to be higher on Ron Rivera than I am. I think Brian Dable's a much better coach.
Man, Ron Rivera, man, that guy, he is just botches the quarterback position every year.
Coaching goes a long way in the NFL.
Big time. And you don't want a guy who's not offensive-minded making the decisions for the offense. He botched it with Kyle Allen. He brought in Kyle Allen. They started him. He ended up getting hurt. He botched it with Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace. Then he botched it with Alex Smith. He botched it with Carson Wentz. They brought in Carson Wentz for $28 million, zero dead cap hit, so I wasn't too mad at the move. I thought it could have panned out a little bit. But when he ends up getting hurt against the Chicago Bears on Thursday night, Taylor Heineke comes in. He wins you 5 out of 6 games. He literally prepped the damn meal to get you into the playoffs. He loses a game he ties the Giants, and then he loses to the San Francisco 49ers, and you go, yoink, you take him out. Carson Wentz loses the rest of the game. Sam Howell comes in, wins the last game against the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Washington Commanders could have been there last year, but coaching literally was the difference, I think.
Coaching's, in my opinion, coaching is the most important thing in football. It's more important than even the quarterback. It's
Tanner, I hate it when people are like, coaching matters.
No shit.
Like, no shit, right? Like, of course the hell, you think Bill Belichick winning Super Bowls because he's just some average Joe? Yeah. Like, I don't understand that.
Like, there's a reason, like the Steelers, every year people write them off. Every year. And they've, of course, over Tomlin's career, Tomlin's been there for like 20 years. Yeah. So, of course, he's had to have had years where they had a ridiculously hard schedule. I'm sure it's happened multiple times, especially in the AFC North. They've had some competitive teams during his time there. The Ravens have always been good. The Bengals with Palmer at one point, I don't know if he was there for that, but of course, Andy Dalton, even they were competitive. They went
Dalton
to the playoffs with Andy Dalton.
Yep.
4 years in a row, I think it was. And then, of course, the recent
years.
So they've always been in a tough division. And they've had times where you've said to yourself, they don't have that much talent on this team. But every year, the Steelers win at least 8 or 9 games.
And that's
every year, you could pencil it in. And if you have a great head coach, that's why I look at the schedule. Everybody's freaking out about the schedule. I believe in Brian Dable.
Yeah.
And if I believe that Brian Dable is an upper echelon coach, I think he's going to find a way to win at least 8 or 9 games if the team stays relatively healthy.
I'm right around 8 wins myself. I think 8 wins would be a great conservative number, but I'm going to go with probably like 9 wins. I think the schedule is tougher, but this team is better. So we might not, eclipse that 9.5 that we had last year, but I think this team's going to look a lot better on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I just believe in the coaching. I think that's the most important thing, and I think that's by far the most important thing in football. Of course, pairing the quarterback with the coach, that's when you become elite. But when you have a great coach, they find ways to win football games. Mike Vrabel, same thing with Tennessee before.
I love Mike Vrabel.
But every year he has that team competitive. When people used to say they're going to fall off, every year.
It's a miracle that Mike Tomlin got that team this year to 500 to save his 500 record every year he's been in the league.
Coaching matters, man. Coaching matters.
It really does.
So
let's get off into a couple of these a couple of questions from the chat as well. Diggy did say that Palmer was there during that time.
So maybe towards the tail end he was,
So if y'all because this StreamYard chat thing is a little bit jacked up here. If when you type a question, just put a Q before it and then type your question out. I'm gonna scroll back and try to just get a couple of these earlier questions as well. Shout out to Steven Ars one time in the building. I see Deedon is in the building. Afghanistan is in the building. Mike K is in the building. We got gang in the building, man. A lot of these people I actually met in streams of yours, man. Shout out Independent Outsider in the building. G-Man 7's in the building. Diggy's in the building. Shout out Diggy in the building. Kevin the PRF, Irish Rover, Mike Jones is in the building one time, man. Shout out to the gang. We appreciate all of y'all pulling up today, man, and rocking out with me and Entertainer to kind of kick off the season, man, and talk about what our expectations are for the New York Giants. It's been a good talk. We just hit the 2-hour mark just about 18 minutes ago. So shout out to Tainer for being here, with the stamina one time for this stream, man. I thought it was going to be like about an hour and a half. Let me see. So the Beard actually comes in with the first question. He says, hey, Tainer, What are the odds for the Orioles to win the World Series?
What a great story the
Little
Orioles are
baseball
this year,
question.
Beard. What a great story the Orioles are this year, Beard. I have a theory on baseball, by the way. I know you're not a big baseball fan. I have a theory on baseball this year. It's been a lot of chaos. It's been a lot of unexpected teams at the top, whether it be the Orioles, whether it be the Texas Rangers. It's, like the Mets, complete disaster. The Yankees have been a big disappointment. Because of the rule changes, I think it benefited the younger teams that were not very good because it lended itself to more speed. They increased the size of the bases. You don't allow the
clock
pitcher
and whatnot, the pitch clock.
I think it's going to take the big market teams like the Mets and the Yankees a couple of years to catch up to the new rules. So I think it benefited the Orioles and teams like Texas because they have a lot of younger players, and I think their roster was better equipped for the rule changes. But my take on the Orioles, they got a shot, man. I mean, you're going to get in. You're going to win the division. Do I think you're going to win? Probably not. I think the Rays are still, in my opinion, the class of that division, but the Orioles might very well win it. But you got a shot. And if you're an Orioles fan, how could you not be thrilled? I mean, it's not that often that you guys win the AL East.
Yeah, Orioles been bad for a while, for sure.
Yeah. So
Definitely
I'm happy for you, man. I'm happy.
Who is this right here? Shout out to Peter Turner. Peter Turner said, no baseball. It's a football stream. Shout out to you one time. The homie Irish Rover has a question for us, too. He says, how many games does Beard think Washington will win in the NFC East? So you got 6 from Entertainer. I'm going to say Washington
I said
wins
1
games.
in the East. He said in the East.
Oh, in the East. Okay, I'm going 2 in the East, and you went 1.
Yeah.
Beard, you can answer that in the chat.
I would say 1 or 2, but if I'm picking the Giants to sweep them, I think I have to go 1.
Got you. Shout out MYG Mason one time in the building. He says, question, let's get wild. What's more likely, Aziz 15-plus sacks or Daniel Jones 30-plus touchdown passes?
Oh, Daniel Jones.
Yeah, 100% the Daniel. I mean, 15 is just, golly, that would be amazing. But
Daniel Jones.
I'm going with Daniel Jones over 30, even though I think Daniel Jones is going to fall right under it this year. I think it'll be like around 26 to 28, 29 touchdowns this year.
I mean, Daniel Jones' rookie year, he had 24 and 12 starts. So in a 17-game season, that's a 34-touchdown pace. So
see, and the part about that kind of worries me is that we haven't seen those big games since the Saints game from 2 years ago. We haven't seen a big
the
game
Vikings
like that.
game the Vikings playoff game was a big game.
Regular season-wise. You're right about that.
The
Vikings.
Colts he had 4 touchdowns, didn't he?
2 rushing touchdowns. Did he have 2 through the air as well?
I think he did. I think he
still not a big passing game like the ones that we're describing from 2019, right? Where it's like 5 touchdowns against Washington, 4 touchdowns against the Jets, 4 touchdowns against the Detroit Lions as well. Like I want to, if he's going to get that number like in the 30 range, I think it's going to take some big games like that. He's going to need a couple of
4-touchdown games. He's going to need a couple of 4-touchdown games. But I think, if you're asking me what's more likely, I mean, 30 touchdown passes for a quarterback, that's definitely among the league leaders. I'd have to see a list. I would guess only maybe 4 or 5 quarterbacks did that last year. But it was kind of a down year for touchdown
over
passes.
30 passing?
Yeah.
They said with Patrick Mahomes with the 31 that were 10 air yards or less, he had more touchdowns in that realm than only 2 other quarterbacks. I think it was Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. Jared Goff had 29. Kirk Cousins had 30, I believe.
Last year, there was only 4 quarterbacks who had 30 touchdown passes.
Cousins,
Geno,
Burrow, and Geno. That's
Allen, Burrow, and Mahomes. But you had guys, 29 for Cousins, 29 for Goff.
So Goff was 29.
So, I mean, if he throws 30, you're talking probably he's going to be in the top 6 to 8 in touchdown passes. I think that's much more realistic than Aziz being top 2 or 3 in terms of sack leaders.
Yeah.
Especially in this defense. Historically speaking, Wink's defense, you don't really get one guy that compiles a ton of sacks. It kind of comes from all over.
Small sample size, but he's never had a double-digit edge rusher with sacks on any one of his teams that he was a defensive coordinator. I think he had Judon maybe, who had 9.5 possibly.
Judon was close to 10 a couple of times, and he also had he's had some good pass. Zadarius Smith he had, but then they let him go obviously to the Packers. But it's kind of a scheme where they get a lot of sacks, but it comes from all over. So I'd be surprised. I'd be very surprised.
That was a good pause right there too. That's a good one. Okay, so we got some more questions here. Let's see. So we're going with the DJ over 30 touchdown passes on that one. Stephen R says Trey and Tay or KT and Aziz, which duo will flourish in Wink's defense?
Oh, you got to go. KT. You got to go with Aziz and Kayvon. And I'm a huge Tay fan. I think Deonte Banks is going to be very good, but he's a rookie. I mean, both those guys are rookies, so Yeah, you got to go with Kayvon and Azeez. I mean, Kayvon has the potential to be a top 5 edge rusher this year, in my opinion. I'm not saying he will, but he has that potential. And Azeez, we talked about. I mean, he's got a really high upside as well. So, and they have the benefit of an improved defensive line. So I'm definitely going with the edge rushers there.
Facts. Stephen Arch, who asked that question, he says KT gets 15 sacks before Azeez will get it. No disrespect. My homie Kai 001 is in the building one time. He's one of our resident Cowboys fans. He says, do you think Saquon regrets not taking the deal he was originally offered, in the regular season
yes.
the bye week?
I don't think he'd ever admit it for ego purposes. But yes, I think this is what I think happened. I said in my live stream the other day. This is what I think happened in the Saquon situation. I think Saquon and his agent did not think that the Giants were going to get a deal done with Daniel Jones before the tag deadline. And I think that Saquon and his agent anticipated that they were going to initially tag Jones and then try to work out a deal. But by tagging Jones, he was going to hit the open market. That's what I think what they anticipated. And once they were able to get the deal done with Jones before the tag deadline, Jones was done. He had no leverage. I'm sorry, Barkley was done. He had no leverage. That's what I think happened. But if Barkley could go back in time and knew that Daniel Jones was going to sign that extension before the tag deadline, yeah, I think he takes $22 million guaranteed, whatever he was offered.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Do you think it would have changed anything with the Daniel Jones deal if Saquon would have signed back in the middle of the regular season?
No, I still think they would have gotten the deal done.
Yeah.
But I think Jones would have been tagged initially because the Giants would have used it to gain more leverage in negotiations.
Got you.
But because they only had one tag and they hadn't gotten the Saquon Barkley deal done, they had to get the deal done with Jones in order to tag Barkley. But had they gotten an extension done with Barkley in the regular season, if Jones and his agents were playing hardball, I think the Giants would have said, okay, let's use the leverage now. Let's tag Jones, and then we'll try to get an extension done before the start of the regular season.
Definitely like that. Shout out to Chris Peace one time in the building, man. Shout out Chris Peace. Chris Peace says, question, can we have this show once a month or so and get the Bears in here as well? I would do this once a month. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I think that'd be awesome,
obviously, I'm going to be doing a lot of content on my channel, but if my schedule permits, obviously I'm working now full time. I try to come on here once a month for sure.
We'll rap about it, man. That sounds like that could be a plan. And y'all, normally we do the Giant Overreaction at 1 p.m., but Tanner be on his grind, man. I had to do this one at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
But shout out to Chris Peace one time in the building. Let me just see if there's any more questions here. Just scrolling. DJ Aguero says, question, Tana, how far is the Giants from Eagles, Niners, and Lions? So you said Eagles already. What do you think about how close we are to the Niners and to the Lions?
I think we're relatively close to the Niners. To the Lions, I should say.
Yeah.
I think the Lions and the Giants have a very similar trajectory right now. The only difference is I think our quarterback has a little bit more upside. With Goff, I think you know what you got. He's a good quarterback. But I think, like, if you said to me who's more likely, even though I don't think either one is necessarily likely to do this, but if you said which one is more likely to become a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, I would say Daniel Jones, because of the fact that he's an unknown and because of his upbringing, because I think he does have dual threat capabilities. I think he has a bit of a higher ceiling than a guy like Jared Goff. So I think
you said likely for an MVP. What did you say likely for?
More likely to be a top 5 quarterback.
Top 5. That's what you said, likely to be.
Or MVP, I guess, because if you're a top 5, you're an MVP consideration.
Goff could put up the numbers, and I think people still wouldn't consider him top 5 because of what you said. Like, they know what he is. So it's very hard for him to get into that top 5, especially as a pure pocket passer. You got to light it up.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll say about the Lions, they're further along than we are when it matters, though, if I'm being honest.
I think so.
But we can close the gap very fast. Yeah, because their offensive line is tremendous.
I'm going to disagree simply because their defense is straight up. I mean, they've addressed it now, right? But they have terrible.
No, you're right. But they have pieces. They have the defensive line can get really good really fast. But their offensive line is really well built. But our offensive line can get there real quick if Evan Neal develops. So we're very similar. I think there's a very similar trajectory with us and the Lions.
Yeah. I think the Lions are a little bit overrated because of the way that they finished last year. They went on that winning streak. It got all the way down to the last game against the Packers, where even though they were eliminated, they still ended up winning that game and keeping the Packers out of the playoffs. But don't forget, they started off 1-6, 1-7 at the beginning of the year, coming out of where they were on Hard Knocks as well. And I remember a lot of them were very hyped up talking about this was going to be a better team. It could be that they got off to a slow start. Maybe they are as good as people think they are. or it's that I think they're a little bit overhyped here. I'm not. They did address wide receivers, so that helps, but I wasn't sold on the wide receiver core last year. I mean, Khalif Raymond was out there catching passes, and he was an ex-New York Giant who got cut like 2 years ago.
Long term, I like the Giants prospects better because I have tremendous respect for their head coach. I love Dan Campbell, but if you're asking me to pick one, I'm taking the offensive coach. I'm taking Brian Dable. There's going to always be more stability with our offensive scheme.
I'm with you on that.
Like as the Lions get better, they're going to lose their OC. So for that reason alone, long term, I like the prospects for the Giants. Right now, I think they're neck and neck. Like if you ask me the top 5 teams in the NFC, they would probably be my 4th and 5th, and they're very close to one another going into the year. Personally,
I'm a little bit farther down the list with them, maybe like 6 or. I got Seattle above them.
Well, that's fair.
I have where I'm kind of.
I have both those teams above Seattle, but that's fair to say that.
And what do you think about the 49ers as well?
49ers are above us.
Yeah.
The two classes of the NFC are the Eagles and the Niners going into the year. I think you can make an argument the Niners have the best roster, actually, even better than the Eagles. It's very close. But obviously the quarterback. I mean, who knows? If Purdy stayed healthy last year, Purdy looked great with the Niners. Maybe they win that game.
I wish I could have seen that because I don't like that excuse that he got hurt. I mean, they look like dog shit. Goes to show you that you can't plug and play any quarterback.
I mean that was like their 5th string quarterback at that point. Like I was, like all their quarterbacks.
And I like Josh Johnson when he got his opportunity. I was like, hey, good for you, man. I like that kid. He hasn't had stability as a quarterback.
Yeah, but it would have been nice for him to get it in week 7, not in the NFC Championship.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and he looked like I think he had just got there. He looked really.
He was a Giant, wasn't he? For a little bit. I think he was. I think he was a Giant.
He's been on like 8 or 9 teams.
Maybe it was just a training camp, and he didn't. I don't remember, but I think he was a Giant at one point. But yeah, I don't think we're close to the Niners. Now, could we close the gap? Of course. But right now, you look at the Niners. The Niners have 2 wide receivers that are about 5 times better than any one of our wide receivers. Like Ayuk would instantly become by far our best wide receiver if we got him. He's their number 2.
I like Ayuk. I think he's a little overrated too, though. I ain't gonna lie.
I like Ayuk a lot.
I like Ayuk though, but in that offense, it makes it a little easier to excel because they have so many weapons.
McCaffrey might as well be a receiver. Their offensive line is much better than ours. Their defense, I mean, they have the best linebacker in football. They have one of the best edge rushers.
We had a chance to get him. God.
So like the Niners are loaded. So I think those 2 teams, the Eagles and the Niners, are the class. And then I think you can make an argument like the Giants team is a ceiling this year. If everything breaks right, if every team in the league stays healthy. Like if the Eagles have a ton of injuries, of course we could be better than the Eagles. But if going into the year every team stays relatively healthy, I think the Giants' ceiling is 3rd in the NFC. I think that's their ceiling. If everything breaks right, I think they could pass the Cowboys, who right now I probably have 3 going into the year. I don't think they could catch the Eagles or the Niners in terms
I'm with you on that.
Talent.
Yeah, I like that as a ceiling. It's a good place to put that. Let's see. We got a couple other ones here. Do you see Eric Gray being a factor this season?
Yes. Not as big of a factor as some fans may think, but yes.
Do you think it'll be similar to the Matt Breida role last year, or do you think it'll be a more of a workload for him?
A little bit more. Maybe not. He may not get more touches than Breida because I think Breida will still be somewhat involved too. Yeah. But I think the running, it'll be more of a committee this year than it was. Like Saquon's not going to have almost 300 carries.
He had like 290 something, right?
Yeah, I don't think that. I think Saquon's still going to get a ton of touches, but maybe it'll be reduced by 15 to 20%. Maybe it'll be 240 rushes, and they'll try to, have more explosive plays because they'll use them more sparingly. So I think it'll be a bit more of a committee, and they'll try to get more punch when Saquon is used. That's what I think going into.
I think the same thing. I think Saquon's yards per carry is going to go up this year, and you should see more explosive plays from him this year, more bigger runs. I think things are just going to open up with the weapons we got. Let me see. Somebody also asked about Bryce Ford-Wheaton. You think Bryce Ford-Wheaton makes the roster?
No.
I'm going to say no too. Even though he had that spectacular catch in practice.
There's too much competition. There's way too much competition. And I know he's
Crowder making the roster.
He's got a shot. I'm gonna right now. If you ask me today, I'd say no.
I'm gonna say no too.
But he's got a shot. I would put him at about 30%. But again, if one guy gets hurt, he's making the roster. Yeah. If Shepard gets hurt, he's probably making the roster. Or if Beasley gets hurt, so he's definitely got a shot. But right now, I would think Beasley has a better chance than he does, and I would slightly give Shepard the edge as well. But he's got a chance.
Yeah, I think Beasley's a lock. He's going to be on this roster for sure.
Yeah.
Let me see what else we got here. Diggy asked this question here. Big shout out to Diggy. If y'all don't know about Diggy's content, go over there and subscribe to him too. He does great New York Giants content.
Diggy's a great guy.
Yeah, man. Very, very level-headed takes too. That's why I like Diggy. He says, do you think it's likely that we have all 4 of our front 4 have over 7 sacks each? Ooh, that's a good question.
I'm going to say no. And the reason I'm going to say no, Diggy, is because, and I hate being a realist and I guess a pessimist, chances are one of those guys is going to get hurt this year. Like,
don't tell me that.
That's just the facts. That's just that. Like, chances are one of them is not going to play 17 games. One of them is going to miss 5 or 6 games. It's going to happen, most likely. So just based off that alone, I'm going to say no. What I will say is Dexter Lawrence has been incredibly durable throughout his entire career. Leonard Williams before last year has been incredibly durable. The one guy that's had an injury history really is Aziz. So even though Kayvon missed a few games last year, but chances are there's going to be an injury in that group. So I'm going to say no, we won't. Not all 4 guys will have 7.
Got you. Steven Arch comes in with another question here. He says, Hyatt over 1,000 yards and 7 to 10 touchdowns. Can the Giants have offensive rookie of the year and defensive rookie of the year like the Jets did?
No. I don't want to be pessimistic, but no.
I'm with you on that.
I look around the league right now. You look at look at all the quarterbacks that were drafted. One of them is going to have a good statistical year. Whether it's CJ Stroud, whether it's Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, they are the clear favorites. Like, even if Hyatt had 1,000 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns, chances are one of those quarterbacks are still going to get the award.
That's real. Yeah.
So I'm going to say no. And then defensively, I love Deonte Banks, but I just don't think he's going to have the immediate impact some of the earlier players that were drafted in this year's draft will.
Yeah.
Just because,
and
mainly
the support around him would help him. If he had like a really outstanding secondary around him where he could put up the numbers, I think it could help. But from what we've been seeing from camp, I got to agree with you on that. My man,
and corner traditionally, I know Sauce Gardner did it last year. Sauce Gardner's an anomaly. I think
big time.
We need to pump the expectations, because if you do this, you're going to set Deonte Banks up to fail, and everybody's going to go crazy on the kid. Corner is the second or third hardest position to transition to in the NFL.
Yeah,
it's very incredibly difficult. Like, if Deonte Banks is an average corner in the NFL this year, I will be thrilled. Because to me, I look at him as a project, but a project with a ton of upside, and a guy that I do think will be a well above average corner as he develops throughout the league. But going into the year, I can't set my expectations as higher than an average corner. Sauce Gardner is an anomaly. That does not happen often.
Yeah, that's very, very rare. Let me see what else we got here. Yuvraj Singh says, is it crazy that I think that we have a realistic chance to make it to the NFC Championship game?
No, I don't think it's crazy, because things happen in the NFL. If you get in, you got a shot. A lot of it would come down to matchups and how hot we are when we get in. But if you get in, you got a chance. Last year, we lost, obviously. We got slaughtered.
Yeah.
But we were 60 minutes away from going to the NFC Championship
Facts.
game.
If we could have lucked up and got the right matchup, imagine you played like Dallas in the second round or something. You might have been right there.
I would say, here's what I'll say. I would say you're probably crazy if you pick it before the year starts. But if you say it can happen, no, I don't think you're crazy. That's the beauty of the NFL.
I'd say you go out there and you make that bet right now. That's what I say you do. Go out there and make that bet, because the NFC is wide open. And if the Giants go out here and do what they should do, we should be in the mix for sure.
Yeah.
Let me see what else we got here. Chris P says, do you think Daniel Jones makes a Pro Bowl appearance and makes it into the top 100? That's a good one.
Yes. Yes. I think. Well, here's the thing. The Pro Bowl is like throwing darts at a board. Like, who's the quarterback that got elected this year that's like a backup who had like 4 starts from the Ravens? What's his name?
Oh, yeah, Tyler Huntley.
Yeah, he made the Pro Bowl.
That was
so
wild.
Like the Pro, because getting a Pro Bowl nod nowadays means nothing, because a lot of times the quarterbacks that get elected back out, and then the 5th or 6th quarterback gets elected to the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
But I think Daniel Jones will have at least borderline Pro Bowl statistics this year.
I'm going to say no Pro Bowl, but I'm going to say top 100 next year for sure.
Yeah.
Let me see what else we got here. What do you think the best scenario is for linebacker 2?
I think the best scenario for linebacker 2 is a platoon. I don't think either one of them, as of now, is a guy that, at least going into the year, I think we should be able to depend on to be an every down linebacker. And I think a lot of people forget, like, in this scheme, there's going to be a lot of times they only have one traditional middle linebacker out there.
That was the case last year a ton.
Yeah, they're going to have a lot of extra DBs. They'll have extra safeties. They'll have extra corners. So there's going to be a lot of packages where they don't even have two LBs out there. But I think it should be a platoon based on situation. The book on Micah McFadden when we drafted him is that he is kind of a specialist in terms of being a blitzer up the middle. That was kind of his strength, which is why a lot of people felt like he fit this defense and why we kind of targeted him in the draft when we did. So I think a platoon. I think in certain situations where it's maybe an obvious 3rd and long situation, you use McFadden if you're going to go with 2 LBs. And then in other situations, you go with Beaver. So I think more of a platoon than a guy that plays it every down.
The ceiling on Beavers, I think, is really high. He had a motor when we saw him last year before he got hurt. So I'm hoping that, we get a little late round gem with him.
I'm rooting for
how
Beavers.
that goes.
I
am too.
Beavers.
And McFadden's not bad. I just think, the ceiling just doesn't look as high for McFadden. But I like what he did last year. Mike K says, are you all sick of hearing hype around Hawkins? I think we have a problem if Hawkins is a day 1 starter.
I don't want to say sick because I'm excited. On Twitter, I said I'm a fan on Twitter. I have fun with you guys. So
yeah.
I like when fans are excited. It makes it more fun for me. That I love fans like LPG. Love fans like him.
Yeah.
So I don't get mad when fans get overexcited from training camp. I just try to keep it in check, when I'm on my YouTube channel and I make takes. But I don't get mad with people with that. But if people are going into the year thinking that Trey Hawkins is going to be a guy that we should be able to expect is going to be able to line up every down on the outside, I mean, I hope you're right. But the guy hasn't even played a preseason game yet. He's been in shorts. Right. He's a 6th-round pick. But what I will say, the thing about Trey Hawkins to me that I think there's at least a little bit more legitimacy to this hype than, say, a typical 6th-round pick. He's got the measurables, right? He's 6'3". He's got like 33-inch arms, like everything you look for from a physical standpoint in a corner.
Yeah, he's got it.
He's got it. So I think his ceiling is higher than a typical 6th-round pick. So from that standpoint, I could see people buying in a little bit, but let's pump the brakes a little bit. Like I'm not expecting him to be a starter day 1 for the Giants.
Yeah, that's one that I want to pump the brakes on as well too. But Jalen Hyatt, yeah. Keep driving that car fast. I think we got a lot of hype that'll be answered actually with Jalen Hyatt. But I feel you on the Hawkins thing. It's kind of coming out of left field here, but he has had a good camp. And apologies to Independent Outsider. He was asking about that question for a long time, but the chat is just so discombobulated right now. We got a couple more questions, and then we'll get you up out of here, Tanner. We're pushing that 3rd hour, so I don't want to keep you here too long. But it's been a great stream so far. It seems like everybody in the chat has definitely been digging this. Big shout out to Tanner. If you're not familiar, hit that link in the bio and go subscribe to Entertainer, man. Play-by-play is amazing. Let me see. Independent Outsider, let me get to one of his questions since I missed a couple of them. It says, who is the most overhyped rookie in camp? Opinions.
The rookies that are getting hyped are Hawkins and Hyatt, right? I mean, Banks hasn't been getting hyped. If anything, people have been talking smack about Banks, which I can't stand.
Yep.
Nobody's. I'm excited for Schmitz. That's my favorite thing. That's my favorite clip. When I see Dexter Lawrence and John Michael Schmitz go at it, I love that. But he hasn't been getting a ton of hype.
Nope.
Gray, we haven't heard from. I think you'll hear more from him when they play.
Interesting, we haven't heard from Gray like much. There's
but in training camp, what are you going to really see from a running back?
Yeah, and a lot of it was, just in shorts, but you would think they'd be kind of, putting some clips out there or something.
I think there'll be a little bit more hype for him after the first preseason game because he'll probably have 8, 9, 10 carries, and if he makes a couple big plays, people start talking about him. But right now, I think you're choosing between Hyatt and Hawkins because nobody else is really at hype. And I'm not there. Like, I never like to speak on training. Like, I see a lot of people on Twitter, like, they speak on training camp as if they're there. They're like,
I hate that, bro.
This guy looked like he had great I'm like, I'm not there. So all I'm looking at is clips from people on their cell phones. But those are the 2 guys that are clearly getting the most hype.
You know what I don't like about that either is, like, when you type it in a way that insinuates that you were there and you're not there.
Like,
I really hate that. Like, no, I know you're not there.
Yeah. So... but whatever. I'm not trying to badmouth anybody. But
and shout out to Bobby and Justin, man. I really look forward to this time of year because of what they do the past couple of seasons going up there.
Great.
Their coverage is amazing, man. And just having that access and being able to have somebody come back and tell it to you the way it really is. Because Twitter's one thing, right? And I noticed that this is why I wanted to have you on the show today because our Twitter like debates and stuff, people love those. People always DM me and are like, yo, I love when you and Tanner go at it, And I'm like, I think it's cool, but it's like, it does lack clarity because we're restricted to the amount of characters you can type on Twitter. And it's like, man, I'm not about to sit here and type you a whole paragraph in 40 different tweets,
I also think a lot of times on Twitter, because I know we have respect for each other. So I don't I don't take any offense when you say something on Twitter, but I think a lot of times on Twitter, people things could be misconstrued.
They're reading between lines that aren't there. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like they're looking at it like, why is this dude in your mentions entertainer? He's out here coming at you.
When somebody says something on Twitter, you could read it as either a very positive way, a joking way. Like I would say 85 to 90% of the things I say on Twitter are for fun. It's almost to like troll in a way. Like I love to troll Cowboys fans. It's fun for me. I love it.
I see a lot of your Eagles tweets too. I'll be like, yeah, I like that one right there.
Anytime I get a chance to troll the Cowboys or Eagles, I'm going to do it.
Facts, I feel you.
But I just think people I love Twitter in certain aspects, but I hate it in others because things get.
That's the thing about being like at least virtually face to face, right? Like the things that people misconstrue or the things that get said on Twitter. People wouldn't even be talking to you like that in person, but you know these kind of people that are just like extremely out of pocket, and it's why I tell people. I had somebody DM me just the other day, and he said, "Hey man, like, can you follow me back?" And I was like, "Look, bro, like we Giants Nation all day, and you the fam, but I gotta know you the fam before I follow you back first, right? Because I'm not just gonna be like rubbing elbows with people, and then one day you get into something and you be like, hey, who the fuck is this guy, right? And it's like, oh, I follow him. So I'm very like cautious about who I let into my circle, especially on Twitter, even though it's a lot of joking. I don't want to be dealing with like a bunch of people in my mentions just talking crazy. And I still get those, like people making triple, quadruple accounts to literally just come and troll into my mentions. It's kind of hilarious at this point. But I do think to be a content creator, or in my case, like a film creator who's talking football and stuff like that, you got to have a tough exterior to do this. I think it's important to be able to have that.
You got to have thick skin.
Yeah.
Especially as you get bigger, of course.
Yeah.
You get a lot of mean comments.
You do. I just now, let me tell you how I've been dealing with that. I just kill them with kindness. Like, I'd be like, especially when I drop a video and somebody has something to say about a video, I'm just like, yo, hey, I appreciate you first for checking out the video. Even if they're like straight up just shitting on the video, I'm just like, yo, I appreciate you for taking the time, man. I hope you can find the content that you like, you know, and they don't know what to say after that, because a lot of people are trolling to try to get you to, you know, they want that reaction, that knee-jerk reaction for you to kind of get out of pocket. And I'm sure you've seen on my Twitter in the past, I can definitely get out of pocket on my Twitter at times.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I do too at times.
Oh, yeah, because it's like, you know, certain day you might not want to deal with something, but that's facts. I love Twitter, though, and shout out to my homies who are in here in the chat right now from Twitter that run the spaces, man, because it's made me a better ball talker waking up in the morning, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., going to chop it up with people like Bass and Rob and Sal and all these people who are committed to doing the spaces on a daily basis. Even if I don't agree with their opinions, there's so much good knowledge that gets distributed in those conversations. So if you follow me on Twitter, these are me and Entertainah's Twitter handles right here. You can follow us both on Twitter. Like, it's hilarious and it's great conversation. And I think some of these spaces, like, you know, just throw the feelings out. Like, it's all ball talk at the end of the day, and we have a great time doing it. So big shout out to all the people in the chat that are here from Twitter, because Twitter's it's a double-edged sword, but I love it there. I just love that platform. And this whole Threads thing, I don't want that to come.
Twitter is the best place in the world when the Giants win, and it's the worst place in the world when the Giants lose.
Oh my God!
When the Giants win, I can't wait to party on Twitter for 5 hours. And when the Giants lose, I don't want to look at Twitter for 5 days.
Facts. That's facts. That's definitely, especially when you predicted something during the week or something and people trying to come at. Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. All right, let's get a couple more questions, man, and then we'll get you up out of here, bro. I don't want to keep you too much longer here. Shout out to Roman in the building. He says, W stream, boys. Big shout out to you. Shout out to Lil Bulldozer in the building as well. Val Boston says, I wish I got here earlier. You can always go back, rewind it. I know the vibes ain't going to be the same when the chat is live. Being in a live stream is so awesome. That's why I love your play-by-plays, because your chat be going crazy. You can like
I love doing live streams, and I don't do anything over the top, like in terms of like having like a show. I just go live and I talk sports, and it's my favorite thing to do on YouTube, especially when I do a solo stream, because the chat is basically like my co-host. You know, that's the way I look at it. And I say it all the time. Like when I go live and I have like 600-700, whatever the amount of people in there, I say to the chat, I'm like, the way that I envision this, and like people ask me for like tips, like how did you grow your channel? I don't know. I got lucky. I don't know. But like,
I don't think you got lucky, but you have a particular skill set that you fire at.
Yeah. But like the way that I envision it when I go live is, say there's 700 people in the chat. I envision it like it's me and 700 different individuals at a bar talking sports.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I go on.
It's the best way to do it too. You know, when I go live, I'm so much more comfortable, right? when I record videos and there's no one there to like actually speak to, it's a different vibe. It's a different feel. Where when I'm here, you're gonna get like, it's like almost like reading in front of the class. It's like when I'm by myself and I'm just looking at a camera, there's nobody there, man. There's nobody to absorb the information that you're giving out. So I much prefer the lives. And here with me and the Beard, our first 3 seasons were just all lives. We just started doing pre-recorded content this year. So, and that's why I think the channel's kind of picking up a little bit now, is because we weren't in that like algorithm of pre-recorded content at all.
What is I'm just curious what Jay Ferry says. The CCs. I don't even know what CCs mean. The CCs I DM with are pretty jealous of Tana. I don't even know what CCs.
Content creators.
Oh, content creators. Oh.
Yeah, I get that too, though. A lot of people, man, look, Entertainer, I always vouch for you every time I can because I know you personally. Me and you have a relationship outside of here.
Let them be jealous. I don't care.
I'll let them be jealous, right? But this is the one thing I won't let happen on my watch for you, and I hope you would do the same for me, is when I hear false information about you, I correct it immediately. Yeah, and I do that for all my peoples. I'm a real one when it comes to the, at the end of the day, I'm a real one. And like if I might disagree with you, but if you are literally saying something that is not factual about somebody, I'll be there to clean that up as much as I can. I'm not going to be wearing the cape for Entertainer. That's my guy, right? But I'm not going to be wearing the cape. But if I hear false information, I'm going to be like, I don't think that's kind of true, man. And Twitter, people build these bubbles. Yeah. Where they just like, they don't even know me, bro.
Well, I know there's group chats where people, it just, it comes with the terror. I am in one group chat and it's just with a bunch of Giants fans. I don't do group chats. Occasionally I'll pop in there, but I know there's all these group chats because there'll be times where I post a tweet and then it'll get like 8 responses from like the same clique of people.
The same group of people.
And I'm like, okay, so you guys talk shit about me in your group chats. I don't care. As you get bigger, you're going to have jealousy. That's just what comes with the territory. But
you got to be able to deal with that. You really have to be able to deal with that. And for me, before I did any podcasting, I was a musician first, and I used to get on stages all the time. I've toured with a ton of hip-hop acts. I've been on stage with some of the biggest names in the studio with some of the biggest names. I don't even got to list them, right? But I know what it's like to get up on a stage and be judged. And it prepared me for what I do here on YouTube and what I do on Twitter. Like, it's not much you're going to say to me that's going to make me really care about it. So at the end of the day, I'm about trying to provide value to the people that are closest to me. And I'm going to be myself unapologetically so that I can just get rid of all those people that don't get down with me.
That's the most important thing, man, is be yourself. It's people could see right through it. Yep. I'm not going to speak, I'm not going to speak about anybody in particular, but there'll be times where I go on a content creator's page and I'll be like, this guy doesn't love doing what he's doing. He's doing this for views. He's doing this for clicks. He's doing this. People could see through it. What's authentic? No pun intended. What's
facts,
not.
Though. Yeah, I have a saying that comes from one of the artists I work with, Chaz French. He says, y'all in it for likes, but we in it for life. I don't, to me, it doesn't matter how many subs I get on this channel. It doesn't matter what people think of the opinion. I'm trying to leave a paper trail for me. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. That's how I look at it. So I want to leave a paper trail of what I do and try to do that as best as I can be. That's all I could do for real. So big shout out to Tanner for seeing that eye to eye on that. Let me see what else we got here, man. I'll get 3 more and then we'll get you up out of here. So let me see. This one's a little bit farther back. Shout out Independent Outsider. He said the 3-hour with Awthentik. That's facts right there. Definitely at almost the 3-hour mark. Let me just see if I can get a couple of more good questions. I'm looking for stuff that has not been repeated yet. DJ wants to know your thoughts on the Jets.
I think the Jets are really good. I think the Jets are really good, but I don't think they'll go really far in the playoffs because I think the AFC is loaded. But I think they're a playoff team. I without looking at their schedule, like if you just asked me, what do you think? I think they're an 11-win team. I think they're really good.
Yeah, Kevin the PRF says Awthentik just used code that we're going to be going 4 hours today. Shout out to God Kizza one time in the building. This will be we'll get 2 more. I'll give you 2 more and then we'll get up out of here. He says, who do you think starts at right guard, Mark Glowinski or Ben Bredesen?
I think they're both going to start. I think Bredesen will start on the left side, right? I think, because Glowinski was on the right side last year, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was on the right last year.
Yeah, so I think it'll be Bredesen on the left, Glowinski on the right, and I think Azudu will become the starter at some point this year, but I don't think it'll be right out of the gate.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that one. I like Ben Bredesen on the left side. It kind of shores up that left side, Daniel Jones' blind side. I like having the 2 better linemen on that side. Hopefully Azudu steps up, man, and he can take that right guard position. But they played him a lot at left guard last year, I feel like, as well. And lastly, let me see. Stephen R. says, if the Giants go 4-4 or 5-4, where the team looks like it needs a boost, Would the Giants trade for a number 1 wide receiver to elevate the team for a game-changing addition? I'm going to say no on that one. Oh, did I lose? Did I lose Tanner? I don't know if y'all are not hearing him. I kind of just lost Tanner for a second. Let me check something real quick. I'll make sure to see if I lost it. If I lost you on here, Tanner, hold on. Yeah, Tanner, it's definitely on your end. I lost audio on your end.
I switched to the crappy mic. I think it just.
Yep, I can hear you now on that one. That's cool. We about to round it out. So really, just answering this last question here. So yeah, if we go 4-4 or 5-4, do you think that there's a chance we trade for a wide receiver?
No. I mean, I'll never say never, because if the right deal presents itself, it's possible. But no, Joe Shane, I think, displayed last year that he's not going to take shortcuts. He's not going to overpay. And generally speaking, at the trade deadline, you're going to overpay. Look what the Bears did last year. Like, you don't think they'd want to take that trade back now if they could? So no, I don't think that's in Joe Shane's DNA. Now, I will say, is there a certain circumstance if the Giants were, say, 7-2 or 8-1, and they were looking really good, and they felt like they actually had a real chance to win a Super Bowl, like maybe like the Niners did last year with the Christian McCaffrey acquisition?
Yeah,
that's possible. But in the scenario that he said, 5-4, no, I think they'll probably let it play out and maybe look for a smart, cost-effective move like they did last year with Hodgins. But I wouldn't expect them to make a mega trade in season.
Yeah, I'm definitely right there with you. And just kind of revisiting what Chris P said about maybe trying to do this once a month. Maybe we do like a check-in, maybe like every 4 weeks or something like that, and make it a little bit less frequent. We'll see how that goes. But man, this was definitely a blast, man. It's been a while since me and Tanner chopped it up. I just want to say thank you, Tanner, for bringing a lot of your fan base over to over to our channel here, because I'd say like about a good third of my base here on this channel, I met them by doing streams on your channel and being in your chat and stuff like that. So big shout out to you, man, for doing that and spreading your wealth in this Giants community, because to me, you're like the first Giants content creator to have a massive following, and I think the reason why you got that massive following is not through any tactics or any schemes or anything like that. It's just straight up through hard work.
I don't think it was luck. I was kidding before.
Oh yeah, it wasn't luck. You put in the work, man. I gave you the stats in the beginning, Tanner.
Yeah, no,
2,000 videos, man.
But I know there's people, like you said, content creators, whatever, that talk shit about me. But that just comes with the territory.
And you know why they do that. They can't be you, so they gotta hate on you, bro. That's what it is.
But Ray said, Chris, I assume you're streaming. Yeah, I'm streaming the game on Friday. That'll be on my channel, and then the following week it'll be on Bad Dogs. But yeah, awesome. I mean, the one thing that I learned when I came on YouTube, when I first started making content, I actually wasn't doing Giants content. I was doing Knicks content. And the Knicks community was so they treated me so well. Like, for somebody that had just started, I had some of the biggest Knicks channels. I had made like 2 videos. I had like 20 subscribers. And I had some of the biggest Knicks channels ask me to come on their platforms and talk Knicks with them. And that was something when I came over and I started doing Giants content that I realized didn't exist. I think when I first started, the biggest one was Pizzle and the Ron Effect and Bad Dog, I guess. And nobody really collaborated with one another. Everybody seemed like they were always competing. Everybody always seemed like they were trying to badmouth one another. And I've always, you could look at my track record, I've always gone out of my way to try to work with. I mean, I've scaled back more now because of my job and because of, so what Fisk did with his video. So I was definitely much more selective with who I worked with after that. But I've always tried to, be inclusive and try to help everybody out. Because at the end of the day, I think what a lot of people don't realize on YouTube, I should say, is that sharing is going to help you grow. Yeah. Because as YouTube grows more and more as a sports platform, more and more people, there's going to be more eyes on the platform. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people just don't realize that, and they treat it as a competition.
Right. It does seem like a lot of people are in competition on here. And I always tell people I'm in competition with myself. I end every show here by saying a statement where I say, keep raising that bar, keep living those dreams, because that is more of a message to myself. Every year, me and the Beard, even from when we first came onto YouTube in 2019, the thing that everybody would say when they would pull up to our channel is, holy, like, you guys' quality is like, you guys could be on ESPN. It was 3 of us at the time, and people were just like, oh my God, this looks like so great, da-da-da. And that's cool, but I just think, like, for me, I always want to try to raise my bar. I'm always trying to get better. The Beard will tell you, every year, before we enter the season, we kind of have a meeting where we just kind of like, what are we revamping and what are we going to get better this year? And I think, now we have about a good 3.1 subscribers on this channel. And a lot of them are diligent. They show up to all our streams. And like I said, we used to be in here, man, where it was no one in here. It was like 2-3 people in the streams and whatnot. And we powered through that, and now we have a bigger base of people following us. And I gotta thank you again for that, because what you talked about rubbing elbows with other content creators and not looking at them as competition, I think that's key in this niche. Me coming from an artist community here in Washington, D.C., where a lot of my success was predicated off a lot of other artists and rubbing elbows with a lot of other artists. You know, I got to work on J. Cole's off-season album just a couple of years ago, and that happened by rubbing elbows with other artists that put me in the room with people who worked with him, and then one thing led to another, and I got a credit on that album. So long story short, I think that's very important to do that. But the competition part, it's cool to be in a bit of friendly competition, I think. You know, like if I see a video from Tanner and I go, God damn, that video's good, I need to up my shit, that's cool. But when you start trying to badmouth people and all that, I think we got to, you know, put that stuff to the side.
Yeah, man, it is what it is, man. I just come on here to do what I love. And
some people are just pieces of shit. Let's just keep it real.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I just come on here to do what I love to talk about, and not everybody's going to love you. That's the other thing you got to realize. You know, when you do this, some people are going to be like, you're too positive for me. You're not negative enough for me. You know, I don't like your act, whatever it may be. But to me, you got the people that do support you, and they do like what you do. It's about building that community. That is the most important thing on YouTube at the end of the day. At the end of the day, Diggy's very knowledgeable. You're very knowledgeable. Big Dash, yes, he was in here. He's very knowledgeable. We all love our team.
All these guys.
We all love our team. We all love talking about the Giants. What is going to make your channel grow? What is going to make people come to your channel? Simple. Relationship. Facts. Period. People have to like you. That's how you grow on YouTube, and you can't fake it. That's what grows a channel. Period. That's it. That's the key.
That's facts, man. Well, again, Tanner, I'm gonna let you go, and then I'm gonna close the show out, man. Any last words? And you got to leave with a stand up for sure. But any last words, and where can people find you?
Yeah, no, I had a blast coming on. I know we went an hour longer, but it was fun, man. Getting to come on here and talk with you, and definitely want to do this more throughout the season. Love what you're building. You know, you're one of the channels where you could look at it, even though you don't, you know, you're getting bigger. But even though you're not necessarily a tremendously large channel, you put a lot of work into it. So you could tell that you care what you're doing, and you're going to get there. I mean, you keep producing what you're producing, you're going to get there. You're kind of working from within a bigger niche. So I think it's kind of harder to grow quickly doing that. But you keep doing what you're doing, you guys are going to get there. I think you guys do a great job. I think you're both great guys. Got to meet you in person. And yeah, I love coming on here whenever I get the opportunity. So I'm just glad to come on and get to talk Giants with you.
That's what's up, man. Well, y'all put some biceps in the chat for my man Entertainer one time. We're going to let Entertainer go. Tanner, I'm going to hit you up, man. We'll chop it up sometime in this next week, man. See what we can maybe get together and connect on something else here.
All right, be good, guys. Have a good night.
All right, dog. Peace, man. All right, y'all. So that was Entertainer talking sports, man. That was definitely a vibe, man. Shout out to the gang. Shout out to the family in the chat one time, man. This was a blessed stream right here, man. I didn't get a chance to see the numbers. StreamYard was on a bull today. Didn't get a chance to see a lot of these chats that y'all had coming in and whatnot. But nonetheless, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back and look at this stream. I'm going to chop some of this stuff up and make some micro content as well that we can post on Twitter and some other social media platforms. But let's get some biceps one time in the chat for the gang one time. Y'all know what it is. We got the Dallas Cowboys coming up week 1. Before that, we got the Detroit Lions coming up here for our first preseason matchup. I'll be in New York for the Carolina Panthers matchup and the preseason matchup as well. Shout out to the homie Mike for blessing me with those tickets. But I'm really looking forward to that Dallas matchup week 1, man. I think we're going to handle business. And a lot of people might be thinking, hey, and a lot of people in this chat might be thinking this, because I do got a lot of Cowboys homies who tune in thinking that y'all probably going to dog walk my New York Giants, but you already know what it is, man.
Spike don't care.
Hey, I appreciate y'all, man. I'm blessed to be able to share this time with y'all. Y'all know how we end every stream over here, man. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams, because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT, Combat Jack one time. And y'all enjoy the rest of y'all evening. I'm going to have another video coming up that I'm going to release on Monday. Shout out to all the new people that popped in today. And if you like the vibes here, man, make sure to hit that subscribe button. That goes a long way for this channel, man. So I will see y'all on the next one. Y'all be good. Enjoy the rest of y'all night. Get some grub, maybe a little 420 vibes. I'm going to hit this Apex Legends one time, get some first-person shooter on, man. And I'll catch y'all on the next one, man. Y'all be good. Peace.